seat.
Did you guys notice?
Yes.
Did you guys
All
notice on the
right.
agenda item?
Welcome to our city council meeting for tonight, January 8th, 2020. That's crazy to say. And welcome to a new year and to our new council. We will begin with an invocation by Pastor Joe from Calvary Chapel, and then we will have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Adams.
Busy place. Must be because of the cake, I imagine,
Exactly.
right?
So,
Lord, we want to thank you for this city, and your scriptures declare a fitting verse for this time of the year, the very beginning of the year, that you have thoughts towards us, Lord, to give us a future and a hope. And I think of what will be for my wife and I 20 years of living in this city and the benefit of city council and city staff. And it's the kind of decisions that are made in this room that attract the doctors that care for us, that attract the teachers that educate our kids. We wish to thank you, Lord, for blessing us with a city. We thank you, Lord, for the growth. We see it. May our roads this year have wise drivers, and may those that choose to move here find what we've all come to know and to enjoy. Pray, Lord, for the wisdom of all those involved, from the most minute decision that the city makes to the biggest ones, Lord, that encompass much of our lives. Thank you, Lord, for the safety you give to us. Thank you, Lord, also for our police and fire, from the chief all the way over to whoever maintains the squad cars, to the fire department that keeps our insurance rates low and saves lives and watches over those that travel to and fro and live within homes, student dorms, condominiums, and apartments. Thank you, Lord, for it all. You promise that you have thoughts towards us. And with that future and a hope that you give to us, may you bless this meeting, and may it be done for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
thank you.
Thank you.
Would you all rise and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will now go to our agenda order approval.
Mayor, I would like to ask, with the permission of my fellow council members, to move public agenda item number 6 down to the bottom of number 8. We have an individual who would like to speak to that address and can't be here till a bit later. So with my council members' permission, I'd like to make that one change. And then with that, I would make a motion to approve the agenda with that one change.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we will go to council business.
Well, it appears that the 3 weeks must have made everybody very fond, because we have a very large crowd here tonight. We've missed you all. I would just like to say one thing. And again, I believe I've mentioned it once before, but I know we haven't met since around the 18th of December. And I just wanted to once again offer my thanks and congratulations to our Public Works Department and staff for the great way our city looked all the way through the holidays and through New Year's. I had a lot of out-of-town people come in for the holidays and commented how beautiful our city looks. So again, just my congratulations to the committee that selected the decorations, to us approving the funding for it, to the wonderful people that made it happen. So thank you.
Echo that same. Yeah, thank you.
And welcome to Tyler, our newest member.
Yeah, thank you. It's
We were, the three of us that were elected were sworn in on Monday so that we can be sworn at hereafter.
It's true.
I would like to revisit a topic that we discussed toward the very end of last year, and that's redoing the city's master plan. We tabled it at the time, but because of the stars aligning, the timing is absolutely perfect for us to redo the city's master plan.
I understand that the work to be done would be subject to a request for proposals, and I am told that that request has been drafted, and that we can look at it as a council and hopefully vote on getting that out next week. When you think about what is going on in the community and how planning is coming together, the Chamber of Commerce is just, and I don't want to steal Chris's thunder, but the Chamber of Commerce has worked for over a year on what they call Vision 2050. We have ASAP, and I never can remember what ASAP stands for. Somebody going to help me?
I don't know.
And even.
Okay.
Where's Danny?
We got
Where's
a,
Danny? Come on, Danny.
well, just
Just tell us what the name is. We can't ever remember it. Okay, thank you.
area sector analysis process is concluding. We got a grant from UDOT to do some transportation studying. And I look forward, you'll recall why this became an agenda item, the frustration of the Planning Commission doing piecemeal zoning changes and other things. We've decided we need to step back and look at everything on an overall basis. One of our prospects to help us with this is Dr. Michael Clay, and I'm going to ask him to spend a few moments to introduce us to his programs and his people. They've been kind enough to come to tonight. 3 wonderful students. That's got to keep you young, Dr. Clay. And so if you wouldn't mind coming up and telling us a little bit about what you do, I would appreciate it.
And please state your name for the record.
I'm Michael Clay from Brigham Young University. I'm the director of the Urban and Regional Planning Program at BYU. The students are going to hand you just some examples of the work that our program has done around the state. I first want to say that I grew up in Hinckley, Utah, went to Delta High School. For those of you that know Delta High School, we love wrestling. My son had his final junior high wrestling match tonight, and I want you to know I'm here.
Wow, that is big.
And I drove 2.5 hours down, 2.5 hours back. I understand I have 10 minutes, so I'm going to try to be quick. My wife videoed the match. My son pinned his guy in the first 30 seconds of the match, so I only missed 30 seconds of wrestling. I'm okay. So a few years ago, the governor's office was aware that there's a lot of rural communities in Utah that need assistance with planning, but they don't necessarily have the funds to hire some of the bigger name consultants to come in and be of assistance to them. My job at BYU is to train the next generation of city planners. And so there was this sort of meeting of the minds that I could use real life projects for my students to help train them. And in the process, we could get a lot of high quality planning work done with a pretty substantial team. You'd have a team of 20 students that would pour over your community. We GPS every manhole, every kind of public facility, the cracks in your sidewalks get photographed, everything. We as you'll see from the products in front of you, we do a fairly substantial existing conditions analysis of public works and public facilities, as well as existing land use transportation. So we've done this at about 8 or 9 rural communities across the state, try to keep it as affordable as we can. BYU subsidizes it to some point. There's some subsidy from some other sources, but as a result, we can deliver a product at a very, very low price. The reason why this becomes a great model piece right now is that the state legislature is considering an appropriation which we would create a center here at SUU. It would be called the Utah Center for Community Planning, in which part of it would be bringing me down here to center this outreach work for rural planning out of Cedar City. And so I'm not assuming any kind of award. We don't know that we're going to win the RFP yet or not. But the idea is this would become a really great seminal piece for that center's opening, to be in the process of creating a plan for Cedar City. My background, I'm on the board of directors for Envision Utah. I have an annual contract with the DOT, UTA, WFRC, MAG. I run a model that micro simulates real estate development on 850,000 legal land parcels along the Wasatch Front across 30 years to help us make better transportation decisions based upon where the real estate market and the growth is going to go. That model to date has been used to locate $7 billion worth of infrastructure. It's used for water, sewer, power, transportation, all kinds of things. In fact, when you drive down I-15 through Salt Lake County and it's not double-decked, my model was one of the things that convinced them that double-decking I-15 would just cause worse traffic and more sprawl. So I'm very heavily involved. I do the modeling for San Diego, for Spokane, I do work in China and Guam and Peru, all over the world. But my home is rural Utah, and Cedar City to me was always a big city when I was a kid. But I would love to be able to come and help. Happy to answer any questions that you have. Like I said, I would be heading a team of about 20 students that would be pouring over your community. We do 8 areas, as you'll see. We do annexation, land use, transportation, economic development. Met the Chamber of Commerce today. One of their folks would love to work with the private sector. We need their input always on these kinds of plans. We would not be updating your zoning ordinance or subdivision regulation. If you wanted that, we could do that as a separate piece. One of the things we've noticed, though, is that Cedar City needs to do, by state regulations, their moderate income housing study needs to be done. And we could fold in the moderate income housing study as part of this RFP for your general plans. You'd be getting a little bit more bang for your buck should you choose to do that. Is that 10 minutes, Councilman Eisman, or do I have a little bit more? Am I good?
No, I think you've done very well.
Are
Do
there
you
any
want to
questions?
introduce these young people?
Yeah, they were kind enough to keep me company in the car. Why don't you guys come up, tell them where you're from, you're in school, that kind of thing, real quick.
My name is Hope Merrill. I'm from American Fork, Utah, and I'm a senior at BYU studying planning, and it has been the best decision I've ever made. It's been wonderful.
My name is Talia Adams, and I'm a senior, so I'll be graduating soon. And I've been able to work on some of the projects like Delta, and I just love it.
Hi, I'm Kendall Willardson. I'm from Cousharam, Utah.
I get extra credit if you know where that is.
Oh, baby, I've been there.
Now, there's rural.
Small town. Oh, but yeah, sweet. Little known fact, though, I did go to East Elementary and Cross Hollow Intermediate School when it was an intermediate school back in the day, Cedar Middle School now.
Mhm.
I lived in Canaryville for about a year or two. So I love this area. I'm a senior. Last semester, last hurrah. So I'm very grateful to be working with a lot of these small towns, and Cedar City is an awesome place. Thanks.
Thank you.
One of the cool and unique things about BYU is we have on our team people from Cousharam. We also will have people from Hong Kong and Singapore on the team. So you get a really broad diversity of opinions and views when we come to town to work on things. But thrilled to be part of it. The one thing, as I talked with Councilman Eisman about, is that we work on a semester basis. And so if we could make this happen, the choice, whoever you're going to use as quickly as possible, we're anxious and chomping at the bit to get started. Our semester has begun, and I've got 20 students hoping this is their project. So whatever we can do to help or assist, any questions that we can answer, you'll be contracting through if you choose us, of course, you'll be contacting through a private consulting firm that I run that works with BYU because I carry the liability insurance for the contracts because BYU doesn't want to, and BYU reimburses me for that. There's this back and forth relationship, but it'll be BYU product, BYU students, but the entity you'll be contracting with will be called Urban Planning International LLC, who will carry the liability, $1 million worth of liability coverage on every project.
Dr. Clay, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions while we have him here?
Well, not with Dr. Clay. I'm just wanting the process for this and the RFP and how we pay for it.
So y'all tabled it last, I
Right.
don't know, November, December.
Mhm.
And the trigger for it coming off the table was 2050 being done.
Right.
I'm not sure if that's done yet or not, but if y'all want to get moving on it, we could put it on the agenda next week. We have an RFP ready. I need to do some of the red line work, but that's okay. It won't take long.
I'd like to look at it and review it.
Yeah.
We'll have that We can publish it next week. It'll sit for 2 weeks. It's got to be published out to the world for 2 weeks and then 2 weeks to award it.
Yeah, I think we should get moving on it.
So would you like this on the agenda for next week?
Please,
Yeah.
please. And thank you. Thanks for foregoing wrestling. And thank you for your devotion to be here and present this. Thank
They
you
had to
very
listen to me for 3 hours on the way down here. They have 3 more hours of me on the way back. Yeah, but again, appreciate the time you've given me.
much. We'll give these back.
Yeah, we'll need to collect these. These actually belong to the towns that have their names on
Yeah.
the front of them. They are previous clients that have paid for the work. I just wanted to show you just some copy of the kind and caliber of work. You don't get a chance to look at all of them, but if you did, you'd see it's all completely unique. There's no cut and paste from one plan to the other. It's all specific to the geography that we're working with.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Are there any other staff comments? Do you want to mention the?
That's what I didn't know if you were going to invite
No.
everybody.
Okay. We're still at council. Yes. No, go for it.
All right.
It's your cake.
We just wanted to wish everybody a happy new year and to celebrate everyone being here tonight. We've got treats out there for you. Make sure before you leave, you have some cake and some other treats that are out there on the table. Thank you for being here tonight and happy new year to all of you.
There's some seats up here in the front and a couple of seats, I think, on the second row. I know
Okay.
people are looking for places to sit.
So any other? Yes.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have one item. As this is my first city council meeting, Tyler Romeril and I are still working on some of that compliance paperwork to make sure everything's good to go. I just, before I offer any input on anything, want to disclose any of my affiliations so that people know any conflicts or perspectives I may have. So first of all, my primary job, I am an attorney. I mostly do wills and trusts, but I deal with a lot of different types of clients whose interests are on many sides of many issues. I do not represent them in this capacity. I represent the city, but I did feel the need to disclose that, as well as I do have a part-time contract at Southern Utah University. I'm their legal studies coordinator, so I help pre-law students applying to law school and oversee some of that curriculum. And then I serve as a volunteer on 3 nonprofit boards locally. The Orchestra of Southern Utah, I serve on their board and have for a few years. I serve on the Red Acre Center board, which oversees some of the agricultural and land use policy statewide. And then I also serve on the Chamber of Commerce board as the immediate past president.
Thank you. Okay. We will move on to staff comments.
So staff is just looking for a little direction from the city council. Recently, it came to my attention that the city owns some property. It's just before you get to the turnoff to Right Hand Canyon. On that property, there's a Coldwell Banker sign, and that it's actually on city property. It's been there for probably 10, 20 years. So I talked to Dan Roberts about it, and he confirmed that, yeah, that was his sign. We're not too sure how it got there. We don't think there's any ill will. It just ended up there. They had all their approvals from UDOT for it to get there. So the question is, does the city council want to go down the road of leasing out part of its property for advertising? Do we want to stay out of that and have the sign removed? Just looking for a little direction. Mr. Roberts is here. He's more than happy to sign a lease and pay for the use there. But before I just went down that road, I thought I'd get some feedback from the council.
Would 2.8 million be okay? just checking.
Yeah, we took care of that problem.
Yeah,
You really went down that path.
You had to say that.
Oh, boy.
You know, it's interesting. I've noticed that sign several times when I've gone up and down the canyon. And I know that, we get a lot of people coming through this area because of the beauty and the uniqueness of where we live. And I understand the need for realty companies to make their living, but I personally would like to keep our canyons to be pristine. And so I didn't know we owned that property until just now. I don't think it's doing a lot of harm, but if it is to stay there, we definitely should enter into some kind of a lease agreement on it to get some revenue.
And yeah, I'm just kind of springing this on the council. So we could we could just put on the agenda for next week, give you a week to think about it.
Sure.
What we don't want to do is end up, like Scott says, though, with a line of signs. So, if we get a lot of requests, we might need to discuss it further. Because I'm with Scott, I don't want to see the whole canyon area there full of advertising, but it's been there for a long time. I don't have any opposition to it, but fairness to others, we probably should charge.
And that's nothing personal against Mr. Roberts and Caldwell Banker. That's just an aesthetic issue relative to our canyons.
Will you come up to the microphone, Dan? And you have to say your name for the record.
Dan Roberts, and when I bought the business from Clayton Frainer, it had been there for a long time. He said that Roger Dillman owned it, and that was before 1990. Okay, and so I didn't know that I was using your property all these years. And so anyway, it's a little teeny corner that comes out. It was part of a section, and it's just a small corner. And so UDOT, they came to us, said, you've got to have a permit. So we've been paying the permit to UDOT for probably over 40 years, and to use that piece of property. And so I don't know if the city got it from Roger Dillman or how it came about. I don't know. So it was a surprise to me that the city owned it. And so anyway, I appreciate leaving it there. We've had, I don't think that UDOT will allow any more signs up and down the canyon. Okay, I think that's probably the last one, the first and the last. Okay. And so anyway, I'd be happy to pay the city a lease amount that would be fair. If we could leave it there, we've got quite an investment, but anyway, I understand it both ways.
Yeah.
So
All right.
anyway,
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
All right. Is that your name? Are there any other staff comments? On the sign?
My name's Jim Rushton. We own the adjacent property to that, and if that is going to be something that would be leased out, I think it would be appropriate to at least put it out to bid. So I don't know that we necessarily would want to pay as much as would need to be paid for that, but I think it should be put out to bid, not just so.
We being your realty company.
No, well, no, I own the property.
You personally own the
yeah.
property.
So
Gotcha.
City procedures, if we do put out property for lease, it requires public notice.
Mhm.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Are there any other staff comments? I couldn't see back there. If there was any. No? Okay, then we will move on with our public agenda with our public comment portion. If there's anyone here that would like to address the council about an item not on the agenda, now is your opportunity. Just try to keep your remarks very brief and state your name or I will cut you off. So you do state your name.
Cimbria Patterson, Red Acres Center for Food and Agriculture. You guys have helped us out before. We put on the Utah Farm and Food Conference in winter, bring in a few hundred people. And we did it last minute a year ago. And then we came 6 months ago and you guys gave us local consent for the Heritage Center. And an opportunity came up yesterday we didn't plan on. The Levitts have graciously are going to allow us to use their hangar for an event that we've normally done out at the barn. And it would be a great savings to us. And with the possibility of serving wine. So that's why I'm standing before you, because we do everything according to the book, and DABC has a certain amount of time. And I spoke to the attorney this morning and he said, if I came and asked you guys, I might be able to be put on the agenda for next week. So it is to ask for local consent to be able to serve wine at a Friday night event in February at a private location.
Just a reminder to the city council that all the land on the airport is encumbered and entangled with either FAA grants or FAA restrictions due to the fact that they fund the bulk of the operations at the airport. One of the major restrictions on airport property is that it's used for aeronautical purposes. While it's no public secret that from time to time people do have activities there, it's another thing for the city to endorse them and promote them that don't seem to have an aeronautical purpose. Perhaps I don't know enough about your event, but it doesn't seem to be tied to airplanes and helicopters and
It's not.
flying public.
You, I don't know how far you want to go down that, but I think Representative Phillips, she was the former chairman of the airport board, but this could get detailed, but you can, because of the Levitts, you own the property inside, it's outside that becomes their strip. And so they have a home attached and a hangar, and there are provisions and things that they allow to be done there that obviously aren't related. They can have wedding receptions and fundraisers, and because that's his use.
All I know is that several hangars have been used for different types of events over the years. So I'm wondering the difference between this one as opposed to, as you mentioned, other events.
Boy Scouts they're not related to.
Or wedding receptions that I know have been held and things like that. So
because they own
it's
the
no secret that from time to time people conduct non-aeronautical activities on the airport, but it's an entirely different thing for us as the entity that's contracted and bound to the FAA to uphold their restrictions, to sanction something and permit something. All of those other things you're talking about, the Cedar City Corporation does not say, yes, you can do this. And that's the request tonight, is for Cedar City Corporation to approve using alcohol at that, which in effect approves that function at the airport, which is non-aeronautical.
I don't know if you want to put on the agenda or you want to ask about it now. Obviously at private events, they have also had alcohol there, whether it was done with local consent or not.
Well, this is a private event. The only people going are the attendees of the conference, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And is this included as part of the conference fee? Are they paying for this alcohol? It is part of the dinner or whatever is included.
It would be IG Winery wine, which is why we're
but they're not paying for it. It's part of the conference fee that they're paying, correct? Yeah. Well, I think it's I don't see the problem, but I'm not the attorney here at the. We got four of them sitting up here.
I spoke to one, not you. So actually, I spoke to two attorneys. So.
Why don't we put it on the agenda and then maybe investigate it with
more research.
The airport manager and
we can ask Nick to get some guidance from the FAA, and
that would be helpful, I think.
Yeah, we have the airport board meeting in the morning if you want us to address it during the board meeting.
We can reach out to the FAA and see if this would violate our grant assurances.
Ryan, could you ask Nick to get something in writing from the FAA, please? Thank you.
I think it'd be good to at least address it with the board tomorrow and get their feelings on it.
So the board is meeting tomorrow? Okay.
But yeah,
You won't have.
we'll run it through the FAA too,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day,
Right.
we don't want to
No.
violate grant assurances with them.
For sure. Okay.
All right.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm Chris McCormick with the Cedar City Chamber of Commerce. I'm here representing the Chamber Board. And I brought a letter. I won't read it, but I brought a letter requesting that the board or the city council implement or utilize the Vision 2050 studies and all the data that we've collected as part of the RFP process, to include that in the RFP process for the city plan, as well as the area sector analysis process that Danny and the 5 County has been working on, and then also the information from the Move Utah. There's a lot of really good data that came out of all these, and we expect to have that report back hopefully next week from the Kim C. Gardner Policy Institute. So I've got that letter. And then a second matter of business, not really a matter of business, but a topic of interest. In 1950, the Cedar City Chamber hired a gentleman to come in. He's from Arizona. He came in and hand drew a lot of pictures of our community. So the chamber has reproduced this book. We'll be selling these, but I brought one for each of you just so that you can have a glimpse of what we look like in 1950.
I like it.
Yeah.
Chris, I think it would be our intention that we do want to use all of that information. Of course, we haven't seen it, so we don't know what the Vision
Yeah.
2050 is going to be, but I think it will certainly be our intent to take that latest survey information from the citizens and utilize it as part of the master plan. Absolutely.
Good. No, that's good. See, the timing is, the stars
Yeah,
are
absolutely.
aligning. Aren't those cool?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Roger.
Do they match up with
Did you get one for Renaud? Okay, good.
Thank you. I know I have an email from you. I need to respond. I just haven't had time yet. So.
Thank you.
What happened to all these beautiful buildings? Wow.
I mean, never say never. but-
Yeah.
I'm old, looking at old.
I'm sure that they.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This one's still there too, except the root is not.
Yeah, they don't have to retrace. Yeah.
I guess I can come up now. My name is Mary Smith, and I am bringing up again the issues of parking in front of the Spirit Fitness Club on 1600 and the congestion it sometimes causes and near accidents it has sometimes caused from allowing that parking on that side of the street. So some of the things that has happened is, for one thing, the design of the road is, it doesn't matter how wide it is, the design of the road is narrow at the top of the hill. The cars are parking on the right where we're trying to go down, and they tend to be out more where the other cars coming up to Main Street, we have to be in their path. Because sometimes their parking is like bass out, if you know what I'm saying.
Are they parallel parked on the street?
They're parallel parked on the street. And it has caused it's just near misses occasionally. The parking lot is never full, hardly ever used. The people that use the parking lot, and the other reason is they sometimes will park front and back right next to the entrance. And so cars that do use the parking lot, Tyler, you know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Where they park just on the street there?
Yes. And so the cars that use the parking lot have to nose out to get out of the parking lot because they're parked right next to the driveway on both sides. And I've nearly hit people and they've had to screech to get out because they're trying to nose out to see so they can get out of the parking lot.
Are you talking about with the driveway entrance there on the north side of the street? You're talking it's on both sides of that entrance is where they park? Is that what you're talking about?
Is that
That's Spirit Fitness.
Yes, yes. Oh. Well, look, there's no cars there. That's awesome.
Well,
But
just trying
there's
to get a
nothing in
point
the
of
parking
reference.
lot either.
We're trying to get a point of reference of what you're referring to.
Okay, yeah, that side, because if you look at how it's wider down at the bottom of the street, it's at a crest of a hill, and cars are parking in the narrower part, and it looks like it's not that much of a difference on that map, but it is. It really is. And they, we have to go down. I don't know how to use this.
Just the green button. There's the little green line on it.
There's a green button.
I think it's upside down.
Oh,
I mean,
I'm not very computer savvy.
there you go.
That's green.
No, it's got a green line.
Oh, I'm a little colorblind too. So, okay, so right here is where it's really narrow. And there are cars that park. Now, I can't see where the entrance and exit is.
Right there.
Right there.
Yeah.
So cars are parked right up next to this and right up next to the other side. And these people that are coming out, they can't see. But this part here, well, I'm a dork about this, but this is a lot wider and it's at the top of the hill. And sometimes, and here's where the cars are going up. And sometimes we are down in their part because to get around these. And some of these things are big trucks. You can't see it. And I have seen people parallel park between two cars, right? Oh, whoops, sorry. Okay. There's a little bit of parking there. I have seen a car more than once parallel park, and we're trying to turn into Main Street, and they're in our lane. Do you understand what I'm talking about? They're in our lane, and we have to go around them while they're taking 5 minutes to parallel park between two cars instead of taking 2 seconds to go in that parking lot. So that, and I have witnessed that, and I've seen that at 5 o'clock in the morning. There's nobody in the parking lot, and they're parallel parking on Main Street. They're there to exercise. Excuse me?
Well, they're
Now-
parallel parking on 600 North, not on Main Street, correct?
1600.
Yeah, not Main Street.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. And it's gotten worse. So I'm coming back because it's gotten worse since all those condo units are down there in our neighborhood. And I'm just wishing that you guys would actually take it into consideration instead of throwing this issue in the round file, the proverbial round file right there. Okay, please. I'm going to put you on the spot, Tyler. You live down there. You know what I'm talking about. And I don't want to wait until there's an accident there. I don't think that needs to happen. And telling the owner, hey, just tell your people not to park there. If it's legal, they'll park there. I'm sorry, but they will.
So could I ask a kid a question? Isn't the road just a city standard road? It's meeting all the city width conditions. It does curve right there, but it curves on both sides, correct?
Yeah, no, it's built city standard.
Yeah. So is it possible that we could at least look into this and see if Chief Adams, I don't want to bring you under it, but to look at it and have your officers look at it and see if there's some major safety concerns and traffic concerns there that we could look at to at least make some recommendations for what we should look at, just rather than a wide open swath. Let's see if there's some recommendations we can come back with.
Looking at it from you guys who don't go down that road, that looks like a very little difference, but it really is. And we are going down the street in oncoming traffic sometimes because of the way they park on that top narrow part, because they're allowed to do it. And like I say, seriously, some of those big vehicles, they're like maybe 5 or 6 feet from the curb, and they are out in our lane halfway sometimes. So I've seen it plenty of times. I see it at 5 o'clock in the morning, people parallel parking.
Got it.
You know what I'm talking about. Sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot. He always parks in the parking lot.
If you're
When
bringing
he
up
goes.
in front of everyone that I go to the gym at 5 in the morning, yes, I confess. But I use the parking lot.
He does. He uses the parking lot. But he lives close enough, he could walk.
Well, that sure turned on me.
And Curtis can too.
Wow.
Ms. Smith, my question is, I just want to make sure I understand this, because you keep saying where it's narrow at the top. It appears from what I can see that the top and the bottom are the same width. There is a hill there and there is a curve. Isn't that the same width of the road?
Why don't you
Yeah,
drive
it
down
would
there
be.
and see?
I have driven that road many times, ma'am.
Oh,
Many
have you?
times. Yes,
Then
I have.
it's that picture does not show the
I'm not
true
questioning
thing.
there's not a parking
Okay.
problem, but the road width is the same at the top and the bottom. There is a curve in the middle of it. Yes.
It's straight. No, it's straight, isn't it? It's straight down on the south side.
It curves when you get off the page right there a little bit.
Here, it curves in just a touch.
Mhm.
And then here it curves out. So
Right.
the problem is there's cars parked along here.
Right.
So you have to be pushed out this way. When the cars are coming this way,
I understand.
sometimes it causes.
No, I understand. I wasn't questioning.
All right.
But if it curves, it's so little, you can't see it on this side. But on that side, it's a big curve. It really is.
So Chief, will you look into that? Okay.
I would really appreciate it because I have been trying for years to get that to change. I really have. And I just feel like sometimes it's like, oh, there she said it. So, okay,
Okay.
throw it away.
We'll have the chief and engineering look into
I
it.
would really appreciate it. And I'm not the only one that thinks so. So anyway, thanks, Tyler. Sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you.
Okay. Is there anyone else has comments not related to an agenda item? Okay, then we will move on to our business agenda with the public portion. Item number 1, consider community development block grants with our first public hearing. Trying to think. Yeah, I was like, where is she? Do you want me to go first and then? Okay. I would like to open the public hearing for the Community Development Block Grant Program. The purpose of this hearing is to provide citizens with pertinent information about the CDBG program and allow them to discuss possible applications that may be submitted for the 2020 funding cycle. The grant money must be spent on projects benefiting primarily low and moderate income persons. Cedar City is a member of the 5-County Association of Government Group, and they are expected to receive approximately $838,000 for this program year. All eligible activities that can be accomplished under this program are identified in the CDBG application policies and procedures manual, and interested persons can review it at any time. Some example of eligible activities include constructions of public works and facilities, water, sewer lines, low-income housing, provisions of public services such as food banks or homeless shelters. In the past, Cedar City has received several grants to provide low-income housing, food pantry, construction of crisis center, and fire trucks. The Cedar City Capital Investment Plan that is part of a regional consolidated plan is available and will be out on the counter, on the table, if you would like to view it. The list shows what projects the cities have identified as being needed in the community. And with that, we will open the public hearing. And if there's anyone that would like to address the council, the time is now yours. Now Heidi can come talk.
Heidi Miller with the Cedar City Housing Authority, and we would like to consider applying for low-income housing acquisition and rehab, depending on the condition of the home we're able to purchase.
So we're looking to purchase homes, not build.
We do both. Generally, we do not build. We buy existing homes that are in need of rehab.
And is this for 2021?
It would be for the grant funding year will be through 2021, December of 2021. You'll get your contracts usually in June. So you could do it this year if you were quick.
And do I understand this is through the 5-County Association?
It's actually funding from HUD to
Yeah.
the state, and then it's broken down for AOGs throughout the state. And we're Cedar City, Iron County are both members of the 5-County.
No, I know that. I guess what I'm trying to figure, what is the dollar amount we're talking about for Iron County, Cedar City?
It's not. So for the entire 5-County area, there's
Right.
838,000 available.
But we don't know what portion we might get of that 838,000.
If any, because they rate and rank them, and they have a whole system of rating and ranking and what's a priority and what's not. So if
Well,
others,
obviously, Iron County and Cedar City is top priority.
well, yeah, but you and I are a little partial
Oh,
that way. So
okay.
their ranking system, not so much.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Are there any other comments, questions? Anyone else would like to speak in the public hearing? Okay, then we will close the public hearing on this item. Okay, item number 2, consider a vicinity plan for the Cedar Edge Phase 3.
Mike Platt, just here to represent the project Cedar Edge Phase 3, just to complete the master plan of what we designed for phases 1 and 2.
I have a question. On our decision paper, and it may just be a formality, but it lists a different address than there is on the Planning Commission meetings and public hearings. So are we talking, is this at 1500 West, 1700 South? Or is it 1500 North Northfield Road?
It's not the Northfield Road address. This is on the south end of town.
That's what I thought, but
I'm not sure. it's
okay.
Canyon.
Yeah.
So are the number of units and stuff correct on the decision paper?
I can't speak to that.
It says 66 units, 2 to 4 bedrooms. We're just trying to figure out what we're deciding on here.
I'll pull up that map again, please. See, so I think there's 37 this phase, and altogether there's 115 altogether.
So this phase is 37.
Right.
Okay.
So the 66 is not. a
Is
good
not what we're
number
looking
then.
at. Okay.
30s.
May I ask where this sits? Right behind the Holiday Inn Express up on.
It's right there in the Schertz Canyon Road, correct? Isn't that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Do you know where Carter lives? In his backyard.
Now everybody does.
Yeah.
Apparently tonight's the night of calling out where people live.
So I know that in reading through the Planning Commission notes, there were some discussions about drainage and the retaining wall and whatnot. And I'm just wondering, has that all been seen to be resolved, and or where is that at relative, and how does that affect this phase?
That's between the homeowners and Southern View and the project owner. That's not.
Yeah, but this project is the one that evidently helped exacerbate the problem. So I'm just trying to figure out, has
don't
it been
know.
addressed?
I don't know.
Can anybody answer that question?
Well, it was addressed on the phase that went in down here on the phases that have been built. Those issues were addressed. So this phase has not been built.
Yeah, don't those usually come up with the construction drawings
Yes.
rather than vicinity? So
Yeah.
this is just vicinity. This is just preliminary. When we actually get the construction drawings, that's when all that's nailed
Okay,
down.
but it was addressed as a problem prior to this. So I want to make sure we're not just making it worse. That's all I'm trying to address here.
We're very well aware of the problem, and we feel like it's been addressed on the previous.
All right,
phases.
that's what I need to know. Thank you.
All right. Are there additional comments, questions? Do you want this on consent?
Sure.
Yes. Okay. Item number 3, consider bids for purchase of 0.3 acres of city property located on the corner of Coal Creek Road, 800 West.
Because it's higher.
So back in October of 2018, this was a prior interested party. They came before the Planning Commission wanting permission to purchase 0.38 acres of city property located on 800 West Coal Creek Road. We had an appraisal done. It came back at over $30,000, and that individual decided it wasn't worth it and walked away. Since that time, Mr. Cade Adams, who's here, sitting right over there, he's come forward. He owns property adjacent to it. He is interested in buying it. We brought it back to the city council. You gave us permission to move forward with that. An appraisal was obtained. It appraised the property at $34,000. We then opened it up for public bid. Mr. Adams was the only individual that placed a bid on the project. He's offered the appraisal rate, including paying all closing costs.
I have a question on the appraisal. Did we make a change in the ordinance that the city needs to order the appraisal instead of the prospective buyer to avoid any conflicts?
So I don't know if that's 100% clear at this point in the ordinance. We've worked with those to make sure they use an appraisal that we're comfortable with. But I can bring.
We just want to make sure that that's really an arm's length transaction when the prospective buyer goes out and orders their appraisal, that could be a conflict. And I did have a question on the actual appraisal. It said that it had an exception because the parcel description was actually a larger parcel than the 0.38 acres. And I want to make sure that we don't end up transferring an entire parcel that we don't intend, or we resurveying that or breaking it out. Cade, do you know about that? Or
before, when we actually get before we start signing closing documents, I'd make sure that we have the city surveyor up there, make sure those legal descriptions match.
Okay.
Kate Adams. The only thing I could maybe say to that is I tried to find a current map, either a final plat or something, and nothing had been done yet since the road had been put in. So maybe that was assuming the road was not there and part of the property
Okay.
that was part of that. So this is all that is remaining there. And I
Okay.
could have a look at. So
Since the 800 West portion got put in.
yeah.
Okay.
That's just
We
that
just
little
need to
corner
make
that's
sure
left.
that it really is just that triangle in our legal description.
And as far,
So-
for future reference, as far as the appraisal went, I just used who you guys used before.
Right.
And when he asked who would be the client, and I asked Tyler, and he said it would be fine either way. It didn't make any difference. So that would be a good clarification from here on out. So.
Yeah.
And then I'm assuming since you ordered it, did you pay for the appraisal? Is that included in the closing costs?
That's
or-
part of the
okay.
agreement you have to do.
All right.
Yeah, it's just a clarification. When this item was discussed.
You didn't say
Who
your
are you?
name.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tom Jett. Thank you for reminding me. I'd forgotten. in
We
that long
haven't seen
period.
you for 3 weeks, so.
My son said to me tonight that someone will say, I haven't seen you all year. So far I've won the bet because you almost got close, but
I haven't seen you all year.
yeah, darn it. It cost me $1.
You want to split that?
This
Yeah,
is,
wanna
is
split it.
Cade's place properties right here. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I thought, is that property included along with this? Because when we had talked about maybe 3 months ago, and we had talked about putting that up for sale, I thought it was going to be this piece and this piece combined. Is that, am I?
Triangle.
Well, and that's what I'm wondering, if that's part of the
That's what I don't-
description
Yeah, that's what I don't know.
piece that we need to clarify.
Maybe I can answer that. I don't know. So it shows up as two different parcels, and you gave me the approval to take both, but I didn't know if you was gonna, if after the appraisal, if you'd accept this. So that appraisal was another $1,000, then another $1,000 for an engineer to go through and plan it. So I thought, well, I'm not gonna throw another $2,000 at it until I know if you'll even approve this one. And then, so that one will be available as a separate piece, I would assume. I don't know if you have to go clear back to the approval process and not. So when I approached them, I'd asked for both individual separate pieces, and they approved them both, but it wasn't one combined piece. Is that the way you understood it too, Tyler?
And you just end up getting the appraisal on the one for now.
For now, yeah. I
Well,
was real
I'm
surprised. that
confused then, is it this one we're talking about or this?
the
colored
green
one?
one.
It is
Colored.
this one?
No, the
No, the
colored
green
one.
one.
The colored one? Okay.
And now I plan to pursue the other one, and which will be out for bid for everybody now that if we get approval for this one.
Okay.
Mayor, may I say one more thing? Sorry. Tom Jett, Cade's probably going to kick me here for making this comment. I think that these two need to probably go together as one, because this piece is virtually worthless without, well, that's not correct. There's space here for storage of vehicles and so forth on this lot and on this lot. And that's kind of the business that Cade is in, the storage of motorhomes and vehicles and so forth. And I'm not trying to throw them under the bus. I'm just saying, looking out for the city's best interests. We're gonna open up a potential juggernaut where the city's going, well, how do we get rid of this? I think you need to consider putting both of these in the same deal, because they will work together hand in hand for one business. So thank you.
If I might just add, I would love to buy them both. And when the appraisal looked at those, he just went off the square footage, which if you take the square footage for the other one, it came out to be $19,000 for the small piece, which once you do the setbacks for the easements, there leaves about a 200 square foot piece in the middle that you could do something with, which really is
Like a nice patio out
yeah,
of that.
really it's worthless. And you can see the storm drains in the other one. There's very limited use of it as well. So if you can approve to sell me them both, I'll pay the price. I mean, if we don't have to go back to this whole process, I'd be glad to take them both at the same time. So I don't know how you approve that though, Tyler.
Yeah, we've got to advertise that additional spot.
Yeah, well, it lists that parcel. I pulled the appraisal back up and it shows it, that parcel number that we are looking at has 7.38 acres. So I'm not sure what
What he's looking at.
what that includes on there, because if we're only appraising that little piece, I don't know what the other 7 acres are.
Can you tell?
Well,
It's in the second
only
paragraph of the first
thing I could
page.
guess is that includes the green piece, the road, and then the other piece that's up next to his buildings.
And I'll add too,
It just hasn't been broken out yet.
In looking at the county recorder's site for that parcel number, it does list 4 child parcels. So that parcel number that shows up on the GIS has been subdivided already. So we'll probably just want to take a closer look at that. But it's pretty clear on the recorder's site that it has yet to show up on the GIS as the child parcel number.
Of the 0.38.
Right. Mhm.
I just want to make sure we don't transfer 7 acres.
We'll
instead of
clarify with the city
0.38.
surveyor before we bring it back to you for a vote that we're only disposing of the portion on the screen that's shaded in green.
Okay,
The
great.
The advertisement
That
was
works.
for 0.38 acres.
Okay.
I remember seeing
Right.
that.
Okay, so we'll put this on the action agenda for next week with the additional information brought to you
Okay.
by then.
All right, perfect.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, item number 4, public hearing to consider a zone change from annex transition to R2-2 and INM-1 on property located at 1300 West, 3500 North.
Dallas Buckner, Go Civil. So this is a zone change, kind of a unique one. Overall parcel is this L-shaped thing that's hatched. Currently zoned annex transition. We're doing 2 separate zones here. This line here is the approach zone for the airport. And so everything to the north of that is going to be R22, which is in conformance with the general plan. Everything to the southeast of that is going to be I think it was INM1.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is FAA, or I guess is the city ordinance from the FAA says anything in the approach zone is only allowed to have a residential density of 1 residence per 5 acres. And so that piece is, I think, 3 acres. So it's not suitable for subdivision. So that's why it's general planned as INM1.
R22 when you have I1 M1 right next to it.
And so that's why we have 2 separate zones on 1 parcel.
R2 when you have I1 right next to it.
All right, are there questions?
Okay, sure.
Would you like?
Can we maybe talk about the different types of, for the audience clarification, what can be included in an IM1?
No, it's light industrial and manufacturing. INM2 is the heavier industrial and manufacturing.
What would something like GenPack be?
It would probably be the lighter manufacturing.
Okay. Because we have a similar thing there that Councilman Isom just pointed out to me, that we do have an R2 right there next to the GenPack. I'm just trying to wrap my head around what this does to the values of the R2 homes when they're right next to an IM1 zone. So, but I understand the problems we have with the approach zone to the airport.
Yeah, and so this line is actually, if we were to pull up the general plan, this line's parallel to the runway. And so you'll see there's a big projection, a big rectangle that shows everything in there is being general plan for INM1 or commercial, because of I guess it's the FAA regulation saying that you can't have higher density in that zone.
Well, we're going to redo our runway. Couldn't we just shift it and move it?
Yeah.
If we could move it.
That was a joke. That was a joke.
Well, we actually chased it out. I chased it out with Nick Holt to see how flexible they were, if at all. And turns out the FAA is not very flexible on that residential.
What a shock.
So, yeah, but I had to try.
Okay, are there other questions from the council before we open the public hearing?
No.
Okay, then we will open the public hearing on this item. Is anyone that would like to address the council? Okay. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing and we'll move this on to our action agenda for next week.
Can I just ask a more general question? When we annex properties into the city, shouldn't it be a matter of course that they be given a zone and assigned a zone, or
So when
so
they
that
come, when they come in, they're assigned annex transition, which
Okay.
is basically a holding zone.
Okay,
And
so
prior to
so
any
that's
development,
normal.
prior to any development going on, subdivision, building permit, or anything like that, we tell the owners, you've got to now rezone your property to something that follows our general land use plans.
So when when we annex it in, is that when the transfer of any water rights and whatnot that they bring with the property? Is that when that happens, or does that happen now?
So for water rights, there's 3 different stages when they can dedicate water rights to Cedar City. It's either at annexation, subdivision, or building permit. But at one of those stages in the development of that land, we will acquire water rights. On a lot of these annexations, we do get it at annexation.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other general questions? Then we'll move on to item number 5, public hearing to consider an ordinance annexing 40.74 acres of property located in the vicinity of 1850 North, 3500 West.
So maybe I'll just give a quick procedural history. So this annexation came through the Planning Commission, was given a positive recommendation. It then came before the City Council on November 13th, and the petition was accepted. We then posted it, and that started a protest period where any affected entity could object to the annexation. That protest period is concluded. So we're at the last step here where we certify the petition through ordinance, and then it's sent to the state to be properly recorded.
Let's see, is this on Lund Highway?
No.
Where
so
is this
Dallas
located?
Buckner Go Civil.
Hey, thanks.
So it is what was called originally Hunter Glen Phase 3. So it's a little bit west of Lund.
Oh, right.
It's where the lift station is, and then the Hunter Glen Phase 1 detention basin is located on the parcel as well. Let's see where we.
That's
So
Gemini up there to the left.
yeah, further to the left, Kit. There we go. So it's this tract right here, this square.
Okay.
So this is Phase 1.
Yeah.
Hunter Glen.
Okay.
Okay. Are there additional comments or questions from the council at this point?
No.
Okay, then we will open the public hearing. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. And if there's not anything else from the council, move this on to the action.
Yeah.
Okay. We will go to item number 7 since we changed our agenda order around. Consider an ordinance amending the short-term rental ordinance.
My name is Kathy Hunsaker, and I represent my family home located on 940 South Ridge Road. And hopefully that isn't the main topic of this. I have a feeling that me being here today is probably indirectly responsible for the majority of this room being filled. But what I want to address is in the short-term rental licensing is a regulation based on bedroom count, just i.e. 2 people per bedroom plus 4. I'm suggesting that this be stricken as it cannot be enforced. In past discussions of short-term rentals, it has always been a suggestion that no laws or regulations be placed that cannot be enforced. In the 2 years that our property has been licensed as short-term rentals, no laws or ordinances have been violated. I believe this is true for all short-term rentals in Cedar City. This industry has all the necessary laws on the books for safety of the individuals and neighborhoods. It is also a very self-regulated industry. Therefore, my purpose here today is to propose that the current regulation be amended to remove the reference to bedroom count. So is there any questions that you have for me or comments at this time?
So you don't want any, you don't have a maximum occupancy. You just want it all removed based on the number of bedrooms?
No, I don't want it based on bedrooms.
What do you want it based on? Anything?
On the regulations that are already in place for short-term rentals. Because there are many, I mean, even the websites that you advertise on are very strict, and we are very strict. I don't know, do you have some other suggestions to do there? Because the bedroom count is just not working, and I don't think that it's a good policy.
Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of things in our community that we have a difficult time enforcing. Doesn't mean you don't have laws to try and set limits, whether it's speed limits or whatever.
I understand that, and that's why I'm saying that there are already laws that I think, for all the concerns of the people that are here, they're already established in our community, in our state, in the United States, in the world, that already govern all of these. And if there is a problem, then all they have to do is talk to the regulatory institution that's already in place, report them, and they would be taken care of. Now, possibly, we could say, if there are violations and they're reported and they're checked out and they're viable, if that property has been reported, I don't know, 3 times or whatever, the license is pulled.
Yeah, that's currently in currently in the ordinance.
Okay, so
That's already there.
if someone is currently licensed and they're abiding all of the rules and regulations, then why do we need more? What more do we need?
And may I ask a clarifying question? When you're referring to the laws that are already on the books, do you mean mostly nuisance ordinances?
Nuisance, parking, loud noises, whatever their concerns have been brought up, there are already laws on the books that protect individual homes from this and the community. And so, and we have never had, in the 2 years that our property, and I believe with Cedars, the rest of the short-term rentals in Cedar City, there haven't been any complaints.
Mrs. Hunsaker, could I ask, I didn't get a chance to do this. I was trying to get hold of Tyler today, but Tyler had a very busy day today. I know he did. Could you let me know on your application for your business license, which I appreciate you doing, and you are following the rules that way, and I appreciate that. Unfortunately, I think you are mistaken. There are some people that are not following all the rules in short-term rentals in our community, but that's another matter.
Okay.
Can you tell me how many bedrooms you currently list on your application for your particular property?
Well, according to what you have put out there saying that this is what is designated as a bedroom, then we would say we have 11 that qualify for those.
Okay. And so right now, based on the current ordinance, and correct me if I'm wrong, but then you could have 22 people plus 4 making 26. Is that correct?
Seems like your math is accurate.
Good thing. So here's what I'm struggling with. And I'll just be very upfront. And I was in your home yesterday. I toured your home yesterday. Part of our whole ordinance, and again, this is my point of view on it, okay, is it is a residential short-term rental.
Correct.
That means it's a residence. It's not a commercial short-term rental.
Correct.
So my question is, where is the number? What is the tipping point when we go from being a residential setting as opposed to a commercial setting?
Anybody want to answer that?
I don't know. I mean,
I don't know, because that starts to be very subjective. That's very subjective. I don't know what it is.
Of course it is. And
So
I think that's what cities and towns all over the world are trying to deal with right now.
But okay, so what would be the answer? Because the bedroom count can't be enforced, and it has been a very negative impact since Cedar City put that in.
Hey, can you clarify that? What do you mean by negative impact?
Ooh, I hate to bring this up, but our home has been targeted, and the people staying there have been harassed a lot. Even when our own family is there, we have people walking down, taking pictures of us, videotaping us, stopping people that are there to ask them how many people are staying there. And that just shouldn't happen in any private residence.
Sure.
And this, I believe, because of this, is what has caused that. And I don't know what the answer is. I'm here to work with you. Sure.
Can I ask you if you're comfortable answering this, since we're asking everybody else tonight? How close do you live do you live in the rental? Where do you live in relation to the rental?
I guess that's subjective of what I try to identify as live. Since October of this year, we found out that when we got our tax notice, that house's taxes were doubled because they said we were using it in a short-term rental capacity. And when I asked them about that, they said, well, because we're not looking at this because you're making income on it, and because it's short-term rental, then your taxes now have doubled. And I thought, so I guess when I say you, the tax commission or whoever it is, Iron County, do they do that with all owner-occupied properties? If they're doing short rental, they just doubled their taxes? I don't know, but it was on
I don't know
ours.
if they double them, but certainly they would go up because they're an income-producing property.
Okay, and so I thought, well, since it went up like that anyway, and it has not been pleasant living on Ridge Road, I decided we sold a lot of our assets and we decided to buy another home. And we tried all over to decide where, and we felt very strongly that we needed to stay in that vicinity. And I really liked it because I take care of the home. And so we bought a home in the next street over. And it's quite interesting that both of the house numbers are the same. So when I say I live at 940, I live at 940 in both places. But that, I guess you would say, is my primary residence.
So that's where you live, is in the new home. Is that correct?
By your definition. My lifestyle is probably not the same as anybody else's.
Where do you lay your pillow at nighttime and sleep? Where do you cook your meals?
It depends on what day it is. I really don't have a lifestyle that is probably the same as everybody else's. But we do sleep in both homes. When all of our family comes, we may sleep in the other home. But on 940, the majority of the time, that's where we are at, on 1850 South. So I am so close, and every day I go over and check on my home on Ridge Road. I maintain it. I take care of it and do everything there that I do in my 940 South 1850 West home. So if one of your concerns is an owner of that property being responsible for it and taking care of it and maintaining it? Yes, I do.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but when we were reviewing all of this, didn't most cities have an occupancy limit by ordinance?
Most of them did, yes.
That's what I thought.
And by bedrooms or what? By bedrooms?
By bedroom.
And
by bedroom, or I mean, it's across the board. Everybody's trying to grapple with
why can't we do it by square footage then, or something, so that it's not where, I don't know, the neighborhood or the people don't feel like, hey, I'm now the police here, and I get to go and I get to talk to the people and I get to stop to them. And even when they're talking to them, they stop right in the middle of the road to talk to them and question them and follow them all over the place. I mean, is that really what we want in our community?
Well,
I'm
no,
for
of course it isn't.
regulations.
Of course it isn't. We don't want that. I mean,
I'm for regulations. Absolutely. And if you want to go on square footage, maybe that's a possibility. I don't know, but the bedroom count, I just don't know how it just
I think
doesn't
that
seem
was
to be
just
working.
the easiest way for us to establish, some kind of occupancy limit by you certifying on your application how many people. That doesn't give anyone the right to stop your guests on the street and question them. If there's not a problem or whatever, that's very unfortunate.
that's a different kind
Very
of problem that we have to address.
So
But
if there is never been a problem with, say, 18 people staying in it, or a problem with anybody 35 staying in it, then why do we need to have more regulations? If a home as large as ours actually has enough beds to comfortably sleep 32, what is the issue there saying, well, I'm sorry, but we just don't want 32 people there.
Well, as long as it meets
33.
it's got to meet the parking requirements as well, and all of that.
Absolutely. We have done that.
And I'll add, I've been looking at this issue, and granted, other cities do use occupancy per bedroom. However, from what I could tell across the board, very few policy making bodies not policy making bodies, but kind of policy think tanks, nonprofits, organizations that study these things recommend it because of the difficulty to enforce. And they tend to use more objective things like, is it owner occupied? And what was it? Owner occupied, or sometimes based on the zoning and things like that. And I would tend to lean more towards something that can be objectively measured without questioning you how many people are staying the night, because that is very difficult to enforce. And anything that's easier to enforce and does not lead to the neighborhood watch asking you questions, I think would be a more fair and objective type of policy.
And did you, since we're throwing this on, did you not, after leaving my house, walk down and a car stopped, didn't park correctly at all, just stopped right in the middle and ask you, what are you doing at this house? What's your purpose? And would that same person have stopped you if you were coming out of a different house and they saw you? Would they stop you and say, hey, what are you doing at that house?
Granted, the person that stopped me did know me, and I said I'm okay standing in traffic, and they likely didn't stop because it was your home. It's because I'm easy to spot. I'm the blonde short guy driving the obnoxiously red truck. And so I am confident that person would have stopped me otherwise. But and that did actually, that event was fun because it drew to my attention how fast people go down that road. I think they were all going about 40, 45. Anyway.
Sorry.
So would you?
Sorry, tangent. But actually, I don't think that was because of your property. I think that person would have stopped me regardless because we've talked on multiple occasions.
What I think we need to do, and if it's okay with you, is I don't know if other council member have issues. I know there's lots of people that want to comment on this particular issue, and I think the attitude or the experiences you might be having in the neighborhood, we've got to somehow separate from what is right for the ordinance, because people treating people a certain way is a totally different thing than what we need to be doing on the books. And we can't control how nice your neighbors are to you or not to you.
And I did not bring this to have you regulate that at all.
Yeah.
I did not. And I don't think that's the purpose of the council.
No.
And if there is a problem in the neighborhood, we need to work it
We
out
have a hard time taking
ourselves.
care of ourselves alone.
Absolutely. And I'm 100% say that is not the purpose of the city. So would you feel more comfortable if you want to do bedrooms? I mean, do you want to say, well, then we're going to raise it to 4 people per room and there's 4 extra, or you want to, I mean, see, there's no end to it. That's why I said what is the logical thing that we can do for our community when there really is a serious issue with short-term rentals in our community as far as safety and loud noises, whatever the issues are, because I think that I believe, and I think our home has proved it, that this is something that has been requested and people really do want this. And it's been very good for the community. And the majority of the time, these are family reunions or families gathering, extended families, because of weddings that are being here or whatever. And the reviews are as high as they can go. So what is the negative? And here I think that we're trying to pass laws on emotions of what if could happen, or what, in the future, or false realities or whatever. And I really sincerely do not want my neighbors or anybody else to be living in fear all the time. So is there a real fear factor, or is it not? And so when we make our rules and laws, can we please look at the whole community and make them based on, really, is there some way we can regulate this? Does it need to be regulated more than what it is now if you took the bedroom count out?
We need to separate the issues that are happening in your neighborhood from the actual ordinance. And I guess the question in my mind, Kathy, do you think if we removed that requirement, do you think that would stop the harassment in your neighborhood?
So you would still harass us and whoever's staying in our home?
I remember last time we had this conversation, we went around with a maximum occupancy for a home. We went for bedrooms. We went for looking at what the other cities in the state had done. And this was kind of the middle compromise.
Correct.
For what a number of other cities had done. And
Correct.
what
Did everybody walk away happy? Absolutely not. But we tried to find a consensus of a place where we could work with the concerns that wanted, 8 people and then no limits, or people that wanted the very top, or people that wanted to find exactly how many square feet a bedroom should be. And we tried to find some common ground. And unfortunately, like a lot of laws.
bring safety in.
Exactly.
Right.
Not everybody ends up happy. I know Mr. Green is dying to say something back there.
Well, so I would like to remove myself at this time so that you can hear whatever other comments, and then if I could reserve the right to comment at the end. Thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, what we're going to do on this item, which is what we do on a number of these, is we will do 30 minutes of comments, which is to make everybody respectful of their neighbors and of time, and to hopefully make it so you don't all repeat the same thing that has been said before. So we will start with 30 minutes of comments, and please state your name so I don't have to cut you off and take time doing that. And I'm just going to let you know there is a line right behind you.
I know, I saw that. I just tried to get ahead of them. My name is Langline, and I live at 899 South Ridge, which is across the street and a couple doors down. I thought that the agenda item tonight was to go from 2 to 3 potentially, but what I'm hearing is maybe there's some other issues that could be going on down the road. What I'd like to do is to, number one, say I'm really sorry that taxes went up, but as a business model, shouldn't we be doing some background to know that beforehand the taxes may go up? What I'd like to do is to address, I don't know what the rules are on photographs. I have never harassed anybody. I understand the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. I understand cats versus, in my job, the Supreme Court. I'm a 37-year retired sergeant from the Fresno Police Department. I don't harass people. But from a public place, I will take pictures. And as you have talked about, what kind of a number do we come up with? I think that we've actually reached that maximum with 2 per bedroom plus 4. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the parking issue. As we increase the number of people, I've got photographs here of cars up and down the street. It's supposed to be off-street parking, and they're there overnight. And I can show you midnight, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, the trash having to go out. But as we get to this point, I'm really thinking that this is pretty much maxed. If we get over that, God, some of the hotels around here, how many rooms do they have? 35, 36? And we're wanting to do maybe 30, 40 people. At what point does it become an absolute business, which is commercial, in an R1 location? So I can provide these or not, but
I can take them if you'd like me to.
thank you very, very much. But I'm really think that we're at max. I really like having some sort of a standard, 2 per bedroom. I just think that we've already reached the max. Anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
My name is Brad Green. I come from a big family, and we get together. We originate from Cedar City, the Iron County area. My parents had 5 kids, and we average 5 kids each. And we get together, and we've adopted some friends. When we get together at my parents' house on Roundtree Drive, since we're pointing out where people live, they have 6 bedrooms. And we commonly have 45 to 55 people at our events. That's a lot for a 6-bedroom house. It works really well for Thanksgiving. We don't stay overnight, although we do at the cabin at Penguich Lake. And I see a lot of contrast here because the cabin at Penguich Lake is twice as big. It still only has 7 bedrooms. We used to rent it as a short-term rental, and they ran us out of business. We no longer do. We now might sell plates really expensively, but we don't rent it out for people to stay overnight. And I think that's the goal of the effort here, and we find it. And regardless whether it's separate issues, I reject that premise because what I see is when there is regulation in place, there's also a reaction to regulation. The marketplace governs everything. And as there was now teeth to a law for the neighbors to say, hey, are you following the rules? The result of that regulation has been the harassment. The goal is the same. They do not want a hotel in their neighborhood, and they perceive it as a hotel in their neighborhood. I think that the two are related. I reject any premise otherwise. The question becomes, what is appropriate? I reject the premise that pinning a number on the donkey is appropriate. I think the marketplace can govern that too. I think the Huntsakers have come with a super sensible reason or super sensible idea to maybe stay square footage. Some other people would be prejudiced by that because they have lots of bedrooms, but they're smaller. Maybe you make the law overly complicated and go 2 paths. You say either square footage or bedrooms. Pick which way you want to go. Again, that overly complicates. In my opinion, that's unnecessary. This kind of regulation is way too broad because it goes out over the whole city. It doesn't cut the bandage to fit the wound. And so the city should err on the side of freedom because conflict arises in society. And it's the very worst when it's our government that creates the conflict with us, the people. I would encourage you to err on the side of freedom, whatever the result may be. Please consider that this, whatever it is you do, affects the entire city. And it should be overly erring on the side of freedom. Otherwise, the city becomes the bad guy in somebody's life. Thank you.
Don Oswald.
And And can I ask one other thing? If you have a written statement, will you
It's not written, it's
please
just notes.
let us have it? Renan will like you all so much more if you do.
On June 26th, I sat in this room and listened to our city attorney, Mr. Rommel, give instruction on the Ludma law. After getting up and leaving that meeting, I was wondering how in the world this even became a problem or an issue with the thing. The ordinance for an R1, and it says, boarding and lodging houses, two-family dwellings, triplexes, apartment houses, and other multiple dwellings represent of higher density residential area are strictly prohibited in this zone. Now, I understand that somehow we got into this thing in an R1 zone because of the definition of lodging. I've been a motel operator now for 33 and a half years. I know and understand what lodging is. If you'll look up on Google the definition of lodging, it will tell you exactly what's going on. It includes hotels, it includes bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, everything. If you're making money off of selling a room or selling a house overnight, that's lodging. So I don't know how we got to that in the first place. I think carrying on and trying to change the ordinance every time we turn around to fit our personal needs is not the definition or the way to go in this type of thing. If so, we'll get into the same situation as Mrs. Hunsaker said. No end to it. I would like to see the code enforcement. I have a picture on my phone of a house south of my house on 1850 West that has a school bus from Morgan County parked on the street. As that was where that person, the bus driver, the kids stayed at a hotel, but the bus driver stayed at a resident down the street from me. I've got a picture of it. I didn't turn it in. I didn't complain, nothing. But there was not adequate parking for that bus. That's what partially brought this whole issue to the front of everything, was the bus parking with school buses. I would like to see the Hunsakers have an open house where people could go in, as you obviously did, to check out the house, to see how many actual bedrooms there are, and maybe invite code enforcement to come along with us to see what actually qualifies, because I'm not sure, but I heard that house was sold as a 6-bedroom home. And now we got 11 bedrooms in it. So to increase the number and make it unreal, we're just adding fuel to the fire. Thank you.
My name is James Ayton. I live on Ridge Road. I've been here before. I'm glad to hear people admitting that, in fact, their houses are not houses or residences. They're actually hotels. And that is exactly what the R1 ordinance prohibits. When we first came here, we wanted a limit of 12, maximum of 12. And this home now has 11 bedrooms plus 4. Where does it stop? Where does it stop? And please don't lecture us on being neighborly. When you come into a neighborhood and do something that angers everyone in the street. Is that being neighborly? I think not. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Courtney Braithwaite. I live across the street. I want to start by apologizing. I took a picture of a girls' basketball team. There's probably like 30 high school girls. I took the picture from my garage. Like I was literally inside my house. And I got an attorney's letter telling me that I will be liable if they ever have loss of business or a negative review because of me. So I'm really sorry. If you would like this letter, you can have it. So yeah, I apologize. I do believe the house is beautiful. I think they take care of it. It's a great house to look at when I come outside. However, there's a lot of people there. And that's just part of it. We've kind of gotten used to it. But 37 or more feels like a lot. Like a lot. To my house. To my outside my window. With my children playing outside, it just scares me. I'm sorry. I'm getting emotional. I agree with Kathy. I agree it can't be enforced by someone coming and counting the bedrooms. However, I feel like online numbers are an enforcement. If you're looking to rent an Airbnb, I always type in how many people are coming with me, right? I'm not going to pick something that doesn't fit my family. So I do feel like it's enforced. If you list 26, you're going to get around that number, probably more. We're probably going to get like 30 because I'm guilty of sleeping 8 in a hotel room. Sorry, even though there's 4. Okay. So I think if we raise it to 37, possibly more, if more bedrooms come along, that's 40 to 50. And I'm going to say that scares me. Okay, we compromised. We came in and said 10 to 12. We're at 26. That's fine. I think that's fine. I think that's enough. I'd love to see 20, but 26, okay. 37 to 50 scares me. It's an R1 zone. Okay, it's a business. I have it in writing. Okay, so I'm just begging you, please. And I'm also asking you change the R1 zoning. Because right now it says no business is allowed. It says no boarding and lodging. And that's a lie to anyone looking to buy a house in an R1 zone. Thank you.
I'm Terry Kenny. I would like to read Tammy Boat's statement that she was unable to be here to present herself. Our neighborhood is an R1 residential neighborhood. We want to keep it that way and limit any commercial activities to a residential scale. That means limiting the amount of people, traffic, and cars. We are currently unhappy with the STR activities in our neighborhood. Increasing occupancy will only make that balance worse. Commercial activities such as this in any other non-residential zones are required to have much stricter requirements for parking, fire safety, building codes. Why would we allow even more leniency in our residential neighborhoods? And that's a question for the city. These neighborhoods should require greater protection by the city, not less. We already don't require inspections or any proof of what is claimed to be a bedroom, something that we fought hard for. And the city already took away the requirement for an owner to show a plan with bedrooms or any proof of how many legal bedrooms there are there or how many people are staying in them. Without that and an increase in occupancy, we are once again moving from a bed and breakfast model to a hotel model. Enforcement continues to be non-existent. Additional occupancy will be even harder to enforce. The homeowners group that worked hard to get an ordinance drafted compromised a great deal with the existing ordinance, going from strict occupancy numbers and owner-occupied requirements to what the final watered-down version is. And that has been gutted further by no longer requiring proof of legal bedrooms or what constitutes a legal bedroom. We still believe that it should be stricter. We ask you that you support the occupancy limitations you agreed to before and make no further allowances that remove the few protections we have. I'm in agreement with what Tammy Vogt had to say, but I would also like to say that I really feel that it would give our neighborhood peace of mind to know that there's some kind of limitation here. You know, you could even just say, okay, the limit is 26, which is what they have right now. And I trust the Hunsakers to stick with that. So I'm thinking that those of you who are sitting here and one who's not here put in a lot of time researching this when we went through it the first time. And obviously, both parties are still somewhat dissatisfied, which makes me think that we're probably in a pretty fair situation. Another point I would like to make is that things have been said about not making policy over one neighborhood. Well, I don't think we should make our policy over one business either. I think that it needs to be considered that this is a citywide issue, and considering the many things that are going on not only in the United States but around the world, where there are many problems related to short-term rentals, including a shortage of moderately priced housing for people who actually want to live and work in a community. I really think that maybe, like I said, we're in the right spot because nobody's that satisfied. And isn't that usually how it is? I've heard you many times say from your seats up there that nobody can be completely happy. Thank you.
Thought there was somebody coming behind me there. Tom Jett. I'll be very brief. City Council worked for over almost a year, maybe even longer than a year with this issue. I think it was last year. It was contentious, finger pointing, angry, and we don't need to go through this again. This tore our city apart. It caused neighbors to be pitted against neighbors and friends to be pitted against friends. It's sad. It was unfortunate that happened that way. But the thought of changing this again is just not even on my radar. And you know, someday I may be in the vacation rental business too. I would never do what has happened to the extent to the extreme that this has happened. I think I hear people say 26, we can live with that. I think that's nuts. That's just personal. That's just personally. You know, if 15 is probably, that's a huge number of people, but we said it with the wisdom of this council, with the advice of and the input of the citizens from all over this community at 2 per bedroom. I think that's workable. I just hope that we don't have people trying to manipulate the bedrooms into what's not really a bedroom or was never intended to be a bedroom. And I won't mention names, but some people said that that never caused problems. The reason this ordinance change came up is because some people were probably pushing the boundaries a little bit too far and not considering their neighbors and not considering what's best for the community. I don't want to sound like a communist. I just want to sound like a guy that says, hey, let's bring this together and let's be fair to all people. Thank you.
My name is Marian Allen. I would like just to make a comment. When we went through that procedure before and when the council made a decision, right at the beginning, I was very upset because of how this business was presented by the Hunsakers. It was stated that it was a family house and they had a huge amount of family, and they even involved their daughter to come and testify that all these people are related and that is their family. I took great offense against that. That was a deception. And from that time forward, I have had reservations to trust these people, as I have a reservation now that they have increased their bedrooms to 11. My concern is that is Lay Hill. We have an R1 zone. We have single-family homes. Who is to say that people can't come in, purchase a home, receive the roof, take off the roof of their house, and start building up to increase the amount of bedrooms? I'm not saying that this family particularly would do that, but I have reservations of where that leads us. I think there should be a limit on how many bedrooms are available. I mean, there were a lot of concessions done for people that moved into this area that wanted to be in a residential area, they wanted to raise their family in that atmosphere. We have conceded a lot, but I think there is a manipulation going on that is beyond comprehension. And I would like you to consider that for the future as you plan for the area. Thank you.
My name's Scott Hunt. We own several inns and things, and we own the Big Yellow Inn. I want to talk about the Big Yellow Inn right next to Founders Hall. Founders Hall was built about 2 years ago. We went through a bad year of construction, and then since Founders Hall has been in, we've lost about 30% revenue each year with 320 freshman student extras. I'm actually here because of the other thing, but this was kind of irritating me hearing this one. Because at one time we have quite a few rental, and we were the only people on Airbnb at one time. We were on it very early, and you'd go on there and we were the only people on it. So I know quite a bit about it. People asked me over the years, and Scott had said, why aren't I coming to these things when the Airbnb thing was going on? I just didn't, after the SHD, I didn't want to get in another thing. And, but listening to this, our bed and breakfast, R3, I had to get a conditional use permit. And we have 12 rooms, 24 people, 2 in a room. I want to switch to an Airbnb. I can get more people in there. I mean, how on earth is an R1 getting away with that? I hear the reading of the R1. So it says no, but I guess it doesn't say exclusively Airbnb. So if you get rid of Airbnb, can somebody go, this is now overnight, one night lodging, and it's now legal again in R1s? My personal opinion has always been it should never be an R1. If it's in R2, then you should be able to have one little group, one little family come and stay. It shouldn't go on square footage and number of rooms. It's the rights of the neighbors who bought houses in the zone that it is. So just because the house is bigger next to somebody shouldn't mean a neighbor has to deal with 26 people going in and out of the house. That's just an obscene number to me. It should be capped at total of six or 8 people at the most, if they have enough rooms to put 6 or 8 people. But the numbers you're talking about, I'm just going, you gotta be kidding me. Where did all this come from? These are residential neighborhoods. I would be so ticked if I were on Ridge Hill living next to this place. I'd be mad if I were just in a thing where they allowed 10 or 12 people next to me in a residential neighborhood. They need to get, if they have more than 4 people going in, they need to get a conditional use permit and get permissions from their neighbors to be able to do that. I'm just shocked this came up and they're trying to add more to it. But anyway, thanks.
My name's Russ Olson. I live on Ridge Road. And what I'm so sad about is how this has morphed. It just seems that it is unnatural that a hotel can exist in an R1 zone. And during this process, one of the city councilmen demanded to chair the neutral board. And then I found out that Craig Isom actually owns an Airbnb. So the bottom line is you should have recused yourself. You should have backed away, yet you wanted to chair a non-biased committee.
And I'll tell you why I wanted to chair that, by the way. my Airbnb isn't in town, I wanted to share it because my own neighborhood was being ripped apart as one family was being targeted and maligned. And I wanted to be able to see that both sides were considered.
You did not disclose it. Why didn't
Oh, I
you
didn't get
disclose
close
it?
to it because I didn't share the frightened.
Okay, enough.
Let's.
This is not how we get to good policy.
It is not.
And so,
My closing remarks, please.
yeah, you can have
30 seconds. I just want to clarify, this home is a family home. Our family personally has 33 people in it. Personally. And they come quite often. And so, unfortunately, you can't tell if it's our family in there or if it's somebody else or if we've invited friends over or if we're just having a gathering. That's the issue, is it's our family there and we use it the majority of the time. I mean, last year, you can look at, I told them, it was only Airbnb'd 70 days out of 365. 70. That was it. And it brings in a lot of revenue because the people love it's families that are coming together to be there. There's not a hotel. You've been there. It is not a hotel. It is a family home, and we don't represent it as that, and we won't tolerate it like that, and we treat it with families, and we're governing it, as are the laws. We're not looking for increase. We don't want it to be rented for 30 and 40 people all the time. We do not. That is not my purpose here. It's the rights of an individual home, and our family has 33 people. And so now are they saying, we don't want your family? We want to regulate that and say they can't come in and out of your home? That's where you're really crossing the line.
None of us are saying that. I mean, they're not paying the nightly fee. They're your family. That's a different thing. And everybody has Thanksgiving and family reunions and Christmas and family weddings. We understand that. No,
But we're not being treated like that. And I am not against if you vote and say, hey, there's a maximum, fine. Is that because now you are regulating the whole city on our home?
no, that was never the intent. That's why we set it to a bedroom count and number. Whether you have 4 bedrooms, it's still 2 people per bedroom plus 4 guests.
Now,
or whether you have 3
you've all-
bedrooms.
You've all been in my home, as have the majority of a lot of these people. And those bedrooms are not typical, are they? They are far larger than 770 square feet. But still, again, if you decide, hey, we're going to max, then we'll just turn away people. It's okay. We'll just say, hey, you can't
Hunsaker,
come.
I would suggest that maybe, I think Mr. Oswald had a good idea. Why don't you have, it's your call clearly, but maybe have an open house and invite people in to see your home. It is a lovely home. And let them see
It's
it.
adequate for the people. And what are the complaints? Again, have there been complaints on that home or other Airbnbs in a residential neighborhood that they are encroaching upon their property, that they're causing problems in the neighborhood, or are they acting like families that are just here to enjoy each other and they're going out using the facilities in Cedar City? That is our intent, and that's the only reason we have that. No enforcement of what? Enforcement of
what? Yeah.
what was the complaint? That's if there's a complaint, I would like to know. And then
I'm Debbie Gleim. I live on Ridge Road. And we definitely do not walk in front of your house to check you out. However, we are affected by the 25 cars that are parked up and down the street, and there are 9 more up in the driveway. It could be her family, but none of us can know this. If we call to have code enforcement come and check, what we know is an Airbnb vacation rental, no one's there for us. So what are we expected to do? We take pictures and we send you documentation that nothing happens. Then she pops up here and tells us everything's fine, but she didn't have the bus with 35 people pull up and park and leave their garbage on our street. This was before we came to you. This is what started this momentum. This frustrates me something terribly. And we try to be good neighbors, but because of their lifestyle, which they can have, I'm very good with alternative lifestyles. Live where you want to live. But if you're not there for over 6 months, you're not a resident there. You're a property owner renting the property. If she wanted to rent it long term, none of us would care. She wants short-term rental. Put in a hotel. They have space over the garage for 2 more bedrooms. All they have to do is put in a bathroom. What are we supposed to tolerate? This is our thing. Is this our neighborhood, or is this now Hotel Row? And we don't know because they want to spread. They have bought other houses. We know this. She's not the only one. This family's not the only one. But if you don't come in with honesty and above board and tell your neighbors what your plans are, there's no trust from the beginning. And we find out with the bus that as citizens, we have done our best. We have done our due diligence with you, and you've dropped the ball. We have no one to call. It's not a police emergency. It's a code enforcement issue. This is what we need. And we have people we know that are doing Airbnbs and don't even have a license and don't even have a permit. Why not? They advertise, you can find them. It should be happening. Our season's coming. This should be happening. This is our job. So have at it. She's not a victim. She's just not the neighbor that we would all love, but we can deal with her. But we'd like honesty, and we'd like truth, and we would like an effect that is citywide, so no other neighborhood deals with this. None other, especially in R1, but none other. It's only right. And I think our rules, we bent over backwards to make these with you. We're good. We don't see a point in changing. But at what point do we stop the bedroom building? Seriously. It's all on you.
Just one point of clarification, if I might, for the public and the council. Cedar City and Iron County contract with a third-party private entity to scrape the internet to find Airbnb locations so we can make sure that they're properly licensed. So that's an ongoing program. It's been going on for over a year. We don't put it in the papers. We just do it.
Laura Henderson, I think this is endemic of what's going on in Cedar City overall. It's drop of the hat zoning. It's hodgepodge zoning. It's no enforcement. We live on Dewey Avenue, and we're the only street in the city that has a parking ordinance. And I can respect Chief Adams that there's limited resource to be everywhere at all times. And so I have a sorority house across from me. Yahoo! And at any number of times, and and the street signs are not really clearly identified. So that's been kind of a source of contention too. But when they want to have a party, I get all kinds of cars right across from my house. So I think it's endemic of zoning. We're having some major hodgepodge zoning, and it needs to be corrected, and it's got to be one size fits all. I'm sorry.
I do have to say one thing, and I am not going back on what I have not said 100 times before, and some of you may meet me afterwards and throw apples, but our city streets are city streets. Anyone has a right to park on a street as long as they are not breaking laws and blocking driveways and in red zones. They can park in front of any house they want. So to say that there should be no off-street parking is simply not realistic, and it's not the law. So there you are.
All right. We've basically hit our 30 minutes. So does council have other comments, questions? Obviously, this will go on the action agenda. But is there other discussion from the council at this point?
No.
All right. Then this will go on the action agenda and we'll continue. With item number 8, consider final Plat approval for the Cliffs Sunrise subdivision.
Ron Larson with Levitt Land.
Follow that, Ron.
Is that working?
I don't know. It
It's
was.
not, maybe I'm too
There you go.
far away.
We're on item number 8, and then we're going to go back to item number 6.
We moved 6 down to the bottom.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so this is the subdivision, single family homes that is being developed up just off of Cove Drive. The vicinity plan came through a while ago. The first phase of the townhomes right here has already come through and been approved. This is basically the single family lots behind that, including the public roads out to Cove Drive.
So the city's received everything. We're just waiting on some easements that I put in my quick email to you. But when it comes to the bond agreement, fees have been paid, and there's no reason why this shouldn't move forward.
So Ron, you know my question is going to be, maybe you do. Did we solve or fix the elevation issues that we had?
All of this along this north side here
Yes.
is lower. The homes and everything within this subdivision and this subdivision are lower than the existing was prior to us starting. We can't go much lower because you expose the footings and the walls fall over. So
Does it meet the 6-foot minimum on the fences?
It will.
It will.
Yeah. It doesn't, the dirt right now doesn't because it hasn't been final graded, but it will be 6 feet.
Okay. And if it doesn't, are you willing to go
I
in
will
and
make
mitigate that
sure-
and work with the neighbors on that?
I will make sure that it does, or we will talk to the neighbors if we have to.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have you have some retainment up there already.
The
meets
only
the 6 feet.
The only spot that is not is right in here, and it's because the wall that's existing comes out, and then it drops down 2 feet, and so we've dropped the houses down. And then we'll grade it right up near the wall. It'll be 6 feet, but we can't do it. The wall itself is not 6 feet, so it has to kind of slope down to 6 feet from the wall.
From the wall.
So that we keep the footing covered.
So the wall doesn't topple in or the dirt fall the other direction. Got it.
But that's really the spot. There's about 2 or 3 lots right there that have that issue, and that's what we plan to do, is to grade those all lower to do it.
Okay. Are there other comments, questions?
Just give us a statement on trails.
Oh yeah.
The trail
planning, because that's one of the things we're waiting on. I can tell you that the Trails Committee.
Right.
You gotta
The
come up
easement
with
has
something.
been prepared. There's 100-foot wide easement that goes down this draw down to the bottom. And that is being deeded from Sitla to the city now.
Okay.
And then they'll come back later and do all of it as open space, but they just want to do the easement for now until we get everything resolved on this down here on the end, with where the boundaries are going to be on that later phase. They don't want to do the final open space deed.
Yeah, I just want to clarify or get some clarification that you're not pushing everything to the roads and the streets.
What do you mean?
For the trail.
Pushing it? No.
Yeah, because that's
there's
some
the
of
only
questions.
sidewalk.
Remember, that was one of the big questions we had
People
last
are
time, is that
asking us-
transformation from the existing trail over to this new
Yeah,
one.
because where we put the new trail from the fields at the hills,
okay,
coming across, I realize we're going to have some.
There's going to be
on the
there's a
sidewalk,
jog there.
Yeah.
And what happens is that trail is actually up above our property. It's right about here.
Mhm.
There'll be a widened sidewalk on one side of the road or the other. We're still talking with them on which side of the road.
Okay.
Then where this road comes in, there'll be a 10-foot wide trail over to where that open space will start and go down.
Okay.
That's the only.
I think that will
trail.
clarify, because their concerns was where the type of trail that it's going to be. It's walking. It's
It'll be a 10, at least 10 foot
handicapped
wide.
accessible,
So
and bicycles and everything else. They didn't want it all dumped onto the street.
Right.
in
It
a
only
PUD. That was
really the only place, if there's going to be, I think there's only going to be one crossing. I mean, that'll have to be marked, and then there's like I said, there's just a couple hundred feet of road where it'll be, and then it turns into the trail going down.
Yeah, that'll clarify.
So really wasn't any way to get around that part. We had to get through it. So
we understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, we now have a trail going around the reservoir, and then that trail will come right out to Cove Drive, and then eventually meander down through this.
It'll go right down that cut right there, that low spot, all the way down to Cross Hollow, and that's the easement that Sitla's now. They should have them signed in the next few days and back to us. So
And that'll work. Yeah. Thanks.
Are there any other questions? This will go on the action agenda until we can get the other documents.
Okay, thank you.
All right, back to item number 6. Public hearing to consider zone change from R3M to SHD on property located at 350 South, 300 West.
Mike Platt, we're just, pull it up. Yep, just like Mayor said, we're here to present a zone change from R3M to SHD in conformance with the general plan.
Mr. Romnell, I need to, and council members, I need to at least note that I live in this neighborhood, and I received one of the letters because I'm within 300 feet of this. So my comments will reflect that. But my comments have been consistent throughout the process, I think, on SHD. And I just want to share a few thoughts I have, and then obviously there'll be other people that can respond. I spoke at Planning Commission about this, and I have similar concerns still that this particular project is right in the middle of a neighborhood block. If you're familiar with 300 West, we know that Founders Hall was built on the north side of that, which was directly across from the university and was adjacent, with part of that being university property and property that they leased back from the Levitts, et cetera. But I'm concerned that this is going to be right in the middle of the block, and what it does to the feel and the aesthetic quality of the neighborhood. Plus, you know, I don't know if it'll end up being 3 stories, 4 stories, or 5 stories. I don't know what it will be. But clearly the privacy of the existing neighbors on either side of that and the back of it or to the sides will be certainly diminished, because if you're 3 stories up, you can certainly see a different view into someone's backyard or front yard or bedroom, kitchen, whatever it might happen to be. My other real concern with this also is the fact that all of these homes around the neighborhood in the University District is some of our older homes in our community, because that's where the early settlers lived and a lot of the professors lived there. Now, I am the first one to admit that there's a lot of homes there that are not in good shape. They've been bought and turned into rentals, and they are in deteriorated positions. But I would like to see us have the ability maybe to work with the property owner and see if we might find a way to renovate. There's a couple of homes there, particularly one of the brick homes. It's a beautiful 1930s style home that I would hate to see be demolished. It is directly across the street from our first historic district in this town, recognized by the National Historic Preservation. And I worry that what's going to be created across the street, I would hope that we would look at this as an overlay, and perhaps this is where Tyler needs to help me understand that when this came forward 1.5 years ago, and I had posed the SHD at that time, and I still do, for what I think it's doing to neighborhoods, and I think the last 1.5 years have proven exactly what I was worried would happen with the 2 projects that have been built in that area and the 3rd one under construction now. The newer buildings are safer. They have probably better egress. They're going to have the right smoke detectors and all of the things that will help our fire department. But can you clarify for me, Tyler, an overlay zone over an existing zone? Because what I heard 1.5 years ago is maybe different than what the law might tell me, and I need to know this.
So by the overlay zone, do you mean the general plan?
Well, when the SHD zone was put on, it said this is only an overlay zone. Anytime they come back, they'll have to ask for a zone change. That is what we were told.
It's a general plan.
It doesn't have any zoning tied to
I'm
it.
sorry.
Sorry, the SHD is a general land use plan designation. It doesn't have any zoning at all.
Okay.
So throughout the city, Cedar City has a general land use plan that says, we think as a city, this is how we want to grow.
Okay.
Around the airport, we have general land use plans for industrial and manufacturing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
In certain areas, we have single family residential stuff. Downtown, we have commercial stuff.
Sure.
Around the university, a couple years ago, the city said we would like to have that general land use plan designated for the SHD zone. So it's just the general land use plan designation, which says this is basically what we want to do with this land in the future. It doesn't give any zoning rights, whether it's SHD or R1 or anything else. It's an idea of where we want to go in the future.
Okay. So legally then, what ability do we have as a council to address the general land use plan to accept or change it?
So that's what we talked about earlier in the meeting, right? We're going to do a study and amend the general plan. We want to
Right.
do that this year. So when it comes to this request, so the reason why we have a general plan is so we tell property owners and prospective property owners,
Mhm.
this is what you can and can't do with this property in the future. Utah says if we're going to tell people that, we have to have a plan for it. So this is our plan. We have, even though it wasn't a unanimous vote, the city has said, this is our plan. We're going to put student housing around SUU.
Okay.
So this city council, the general land use plan says we're going to put student housing around Southern Utah University. So when a developer sees that land has been planned to be student housing,
Mm-hmm.
and then they ask to be able to follow our plan, what
Mhm.
we said they can do, the safest legal ground is to follow the general plan. If we don't follow the general plan, we put ourselves at risk legally. If we were ever to not follow the general plan, my advice would be two things. One, you put on the record substantial reasons why we're not following it,
Mm-hmm.
and that cannot be based on public clamor.
Okay.
Second would be, let's get a new general plan and let's follow it. Because if we're not good with this and we're not going to follow it, then let's get something we can so property owners have an idea of what we're going to do in the future.
So then let me understand, and again, I'm not the lawyer here, so I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I just have to know. So we're having a public hearing tonight on this issue. So why are we having the public hearing for this zone change if there's really nothing that we can do to stop it? No, I that wasn't meant for applause. I mean, it's a simple question. I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, so you can vote against it.
Yeah.
But legally, I'm going to ask so I can defend it before a judge,
Right.
that you give us substantial reasons why you voted against it other than public clamor.
Sure.
And could you maybe list some of those reasons that would be substantial?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I know. That's why I'm asking you.
Lawyer to
That's
another
not my
lawyer.
specialty.
Yeah.
So.
So there isn't we don't have water, right, for this increased density. There isn't the public infrastructure in place. I mean, I'm sure I could do a little research in the next week and tell you a few more suggestions.
Generally safety and infrastructure related.
Yeah.
Right.
But this
Fire
is
hydrants, fire trucks.
the
yeah.
reason why we're in this position is because land use is one of the most litigated issues in the state of Utah. So the courts have given us very defined rules on how to engage that. There are some decisions the city council will make, like the short-term rental.
Mhm.
There's no legal right or wrong with that.
Right.
And you can take all the public clamor you want and use that to decide what you think is best for the city. But with land use, that's law. It's rooted in the Constitution. So some of these rules come from that, and they help guide city councils to make sure we don't infringe on anyone's rights.
Okay, thank you.
And there were some, I was just thinking from the original after, through all the discussion on the SHD zone, we did a couple of, felt were very important things that I suggested was we removed all R1 and R2 properties out of the original SHD zone. We took those out and said, you can't build any of the SHD type requirements on any of these. We took the R1 and the R2 out and strictly enclosed the area on nothing but R3 multiple use high density areas. So everything in the zone currently, the SHD overlay is R3 or higher, R3M or some version of it, high density. And that's why I realize the SHD zone has a couple of tweaks to R3 as far as building height. You can go 15 feet higher than you can in R3. And, the density, the parking density that we approved was less there because of we felt like in the vicinity of the university. And there's been a couple of projects that have proven that were put in with that less parking, and we haven't had any problems. And I don't see hardly any parking on the street from those projects. I drive that 300 West a lot. And so I think it was a pretty good, it took a lot of time. It wasn't just an instant decision. It was like some of these others. We talked about it and got input and everything else. So I think, and I don't know that softens it. I get where some of the issues are, because in R3, you can still build a 3-story apartment building the way it sets right now. If the SHD zone wasn't even approved, the developer could do that right now.
That's correct. They could.
Without doing anything else. So that's why we made it so that to get the SHD, which had some other tweaks to it, tools. I like the word tools. Paul uses tools all the time. I like that word. Zoning tools. Because there is a couple of variations to an R3. And that's why we made it come back for the council. And like we said, we can vote on it yay or nay. It's not, that way. But anyway, just to bring that up, I would like one point clarified while I have the mic. I might have to drag Chief Phillips up here or Mike Schertz. Mike Schertz could probably answer it. I'll let Chief off the hook. Mike, would you come up and explain, because I understand this went wild in Planning Commission last night. In an SHD zone, and I've forgotten, I was going to look up the details on it, but it says, can you build a building on the property line? And the reason I brought you up is I know there's fire codes that override.
Yeah, so Mike Schertz with the fire department.
So clarify that for the public.
what we essentially did in the SHD zone through that process was to remove the minimum predetermined setbacks and just say that the fire and building codes would determine those setbacks. So I can't speak to whether you could build right on the lot line. I don't think that that's the case. There are some minimums in the fire and building codes, but it would be based on construction type and several factors. But what we did say is, as a city, we're not going to make you build, for example, 10 feet away from that property line. We're just going to let the fire and building code requirements determine that. So that was in essence what we did, among other changes.
That clarifies it.
How often do those change, Chief? Do those fire and building codes change annually, every 5 years?
They're on a 3-year cycle. So every 3 years, the new I codes come out and they're adopted at the state level. And then we, through ordinances, the city adopt those changes. So we're in a new code cycle now. It's the 2018 version. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there other comments, questions from the council? Okay, we will do the same thing. We will have a 30-minute public hearing, and I will open that now, but state your name so I don't have to cut you off to do that. Okay.
My name is Stephen Gwynn. I live over on Dewey, and I actually just have a question to clarify something I didn't understand before all the comments that I know are coming. Tyler, you mentioned that the general use plan was something that you had to have a lot of good reasons to go against or to change or to whatever so that you could prove in a court of law that it was during the whole process when the SHD was created and I came to a lot of meetings, I watched some not only in this subject area, but another subject area. And I could just be my perception, but it looked like, well, there were a number of times where the general plan was changed. And it seemed to take about 30 seconds and a majority vote. It didn't seem to me like the general use plan, the master plan that had been agreed upon however many years ago was really being respected. It just seemed like it was an easy thing to change. Can you clarify what's required to change the master plan, the general use plan, and exactly how set in stone that plan should be and how much respect it should have for me so I can understand?
Right. So the plan can be amended just like zones can be amended. The process is the individual who wants to amend the plan takes it to a sketch meeting. From sketch meeting, it goes to Planning Commission for a recommendation. Following recommendation, it comes to City Council, and through that process, there's notice requirements that need to be met. Whether the plan is abided by is up to the City Council. And there are times when property owners come in and say they want to change their general land use and it's approved. There are times they come in and say we want to change it and it's denied.
So there's not like a set list of factors that have to be met before the City Council can approve it. It's just they can vote for it or up or down majority. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hello, again, my name is Scott Hunt, and we have two buildings actually within the block of this future development. As a little side note, we've got some apartments not 2 blocks from the university, and this year we had 3 openings when school started. So I looked on the university website and called SUU, and they had on their off-campus housing 200 open units the day school started this fall year. And we've got a ton of apartments being built now. We're not in a shortage right now for student housing. If more of this preferential SHD is granted to people, what that is going to do is the students that are living further out will come there, and these apartments further out who had the unfair advantage, if not all of these perks these things get, will sit vacant. And we had a man in a meeting say that the university begged him to build apartments when they were looking for apartments a few years ago. He spent over $1 million of his retirement income putting some apartments in his backyard, and now they're sitting empty. That's his retirement. And so when you give these little perks with less parking and all this stuff, higher buildings and everything, it has effects on people outside of the zone also. And I'm sure all of you council members and the mayor and most of you are here. There's only one new person during that whole SHD thing. I heard 50 times that we're not changing anybody's zoning. It's just the overlay on top of it. It was like, if you have your doctor, you can keep your doctor. I mean, it just went on and on and on. And so I went into the zoning department and I said to them, because I wasn't trusting that statement, and I went in the zoning department. I said, if it conforms with the master plan and somebody comes in and wants to change that, what happens? And they go, oh, you're 90% there. If it conforms with it, it's pretty much a done deal. And it's on tape. I actually watched it the other day to make sure I was thinking right. I came back and said that to the city council. Every one of you guys said, oh no, when that happens, each person will come in individually. We'll have public comments. Everybody will be able. Does anybody deny that happened? Anybody? You weren't here. Does anybody else deny that happened?
Can't agree or
Yeah. Okay, it happened.
Either. I would have
All
to
right.
go back and watch the video.
Anyway, and then and now yesterday I'm sitting at the zoning meeting, And one of the people on the zoning thing, I want to find out exactly where she said it. She said, we were talking about something out of the SHD zone. And she said, are we roped into affirming this like we are the SHD zone? In other words, they gotta approve it. She actually said, are we roped into approving this like we are in the SHD zone? And that caught my attention. I wrote it down. And then Tyler got up and Tyler started reading about all this chatter, that no chatter that we talk about will change anything. And I asked for a clarification on it, and they wouldn't allow him to do a clarification. So I went and met with him in his office today, and I really think he knows his stuff. And what he said to me basically, and it's kind of what you said here, so you got to get this straight, how this works. If somebody buys, and correct me if I'm wrong, if somebody buys an R1 piece of property, but I call it master plan, you call it something else, general plan.
General plan, master plan. So
Okay. So if somebody buys a piece of property and it is zoned R1, if the master plan says it's MU, multiple use, he is pretty much buying that piece of property, assuming it's MU. That he has a right, since you guys have said in the master plan, that's what we want it to be, he has a right for that to be MU. He's assuming he's going to get it. No public chatter according to state law.
So, yeah, and he doesn't have a right, but it's his expectation. The city is giving property owners an expectation that this is what property can be used for.
And then if he doesn't get it, he'll probably sue and he'd probably win.
Unless we have substantial evidence on why we denied it.
Okay. So anyway, so this guy now can do an MU. Little side note in this zoning thing, I just couldn't understand this. Somebody can come in an R1 and say, I want to change this piece of property to an MU. An MU will allow a quaint bed and breakfast, and it'll allow a 50-foot building that's half residential, half commercial. That's the range in an MU. Somebody can come in and say, I want to change this piece of property to an MU. How on earth are the citizens supposed to know? Should I go fight it? Are they building a 50-foot building, or are they going to put a bed and breakfast in there? There's no way to know. They don't require anything of what is going on there. And Tyler said that, to have all the plans done and everything before they go in to see if the zones change is very expensive. I agree with that. A simple pencil sketch saying that I am planning on putting a bed and breakfast in this corner, it might move a little bit, or I am planning on putting a 50-foot building, would sure let people know whether they want to fight it or not in the zoning meeting. I mean, we don't even know now on this thing going up. Is it 5 stories? Is it 1 story? Should I oppose it or not? Is it going to be a couple cute little apartments that I'd like? I have no idea. I have to assume the worst. I'm assuming I think it's not going to be 5 stories because it costs too much to build, but I assume it's going to be a big, ugly thing in the middle of the block. The Founders Hall killed a combination of Founders Hall and the lenient Airbnb, I don't know what it is, killed our Big Yellow Inn revenue 30% in the last 2 years. I don't know which one it is. Now we're going to have another building on the other side of that. How much is that going to hurt us? I mean, all these little decisions have consequences. Where the zoning change is concerned, you guys misled us. I don't think you guys, I know Scott, I've had big conversations with Scott. Scott didn't mislead us last year because he didn't know. He didn't know that this SHG is really rubber stamped. We can't have public chatter. We can't come in and say, yeah, we don't want it. We have 100 windows looking into our backyard at our Big Yellow Inn. I mean, we didn't want it. We don't have public chatter. We can't deny anything. But so my thought is, you guys push this SHD through on all of us, saying that we would have the right to go and on each individual thing, discuss it and figure out whether it's going to be. That is not the case. They're rubber stamped, they're sent through. In my opinion, this SHD should be rescinded and redone without people telling us the wrong information. And as far as the master plan goes, I think the master plan the whole city should go to R1. Why are we giving people an expectation to have our master plan be at R1? So we follow the state law and say, yeah, you don't have any right to do it. And then we have a little mayor's wish list plan that says, yeah, this is what we'd actually like, but it wouldn't be any legally binding document. The people in the historic district were being deceived. And I've told them before, no, you're being deceived. They think they're safe. They think there are two and they're safe. The master plan has them at MU. At any day now, somebody can come in the historic district and say, I want to build a 35-foot apartment here in the middle of this historic district. The master plan says, yeah, that's what you should do. It should be rubber stamped through and he should be able to do it. Historic district means absolutely nothing. So what we're doing, and I hear you're trying to redo the master plan, we have a block that we've designated out, a fairly good sized block that we're starting at the sketch meeting in a week to have rezoned on the master plan to R2, because we don't want this to happen anymore. And I don't care about the whole master plan being done in a year or however long that takes. We want this historic district and all these nice homes in there to be protected, to get them out of the MU and get them to the R2. Anyway, my true thought is we were deceived on this SHD. I think it should be set aside until you guys figure out how it actually works. They don't know how it actually, they're learning how it's actually working right now. Thank you.
Laura Henderson. I have had the privilege of speaking to the project developer, David Minear, and I have had several text conversations about his project, and I am going to, with his blessing, share something that he discussed with the SUU housing coordinator. And we were talking about how going forward, there was an article put out by the Spectrum that said in 2016 that there would not be a need for large projects going forward, that more students were looking at online, and students have to work and support a family. And David had gone to talk to the housing coordinator, and here's his comment. He said, yeah, the housing coordinator thinks the decline will come from increased competition from bigger schools. He did mention an increased reliance on international students too as an option to combat that decline, if it's even possible. So then I went to the current Cedar City general plan, and I won't bore Mr. Isom with what I read last night. I have a fresh piece of information from this plan, and I'm going to take a minute to read it. It's section V5, neighborhood enrichment. And this isn't chatter. This is the words of the Cedar City master plan, general plan that's in place right now. Housing and neighborhood enhancement represents not only the physical structure, but also the social and cultural phenomenon that creates a sense of community and quality of life in which citizens can take pride. Structures provide shelter, but the integration of all of the required supporting facilities will create an environment for societal interaction, neighborhood stability, and residential identity. A social cohesiveness of a community can be measured in terms of the stability and strengths of individual neighborhoods. As a community grows and the city expands, its neighborhoods are the individual building blocks within which the citizens reside. The quality of the neighborhoods is vital to the overall quality of the community. Major efforts should be directed toward neighborhood conservation and improving the capability of neighborhoods to provide an attractive and fulfilling residential environment. There's more, but I won't bore you with that further. But these are the words of the current plan. And I have an article. The article that I was speaking about was from the Spectrum. SUU had put back in, this was written August 27th of 2016, and it interviewed several employees of SUU who also speak to that there was an increase in student enrollment. They met the challenge. They got together with the Levitts. They built a couple structures, and they feel going forward, they're not going to need superstructures. Maybe, and it's even quoted in this article, if you'd like a copy of it, they talk about maybe a few small things will be needed going forward. But let's face it, online is the wave of the future. I'm not saying they're going to get rid of SUU, but we have to be realistic. If you're building large apartment complexes, 35 to 50 feet tall, eventually they're going to become blighted, unnecessary Section 8 housing. They will, because there isn't going to be the need, and this is what SUU says. I would like to introduce Chandler Tovey at this time. Chandler has a unique perspective, and I would like him to speak to that. I invited him. He actually resides on Dewey Avenue, and I will let him talk to his specifics.
Can I get your article and the things
Absolutely.
you've read?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you.
Chandler Tovey. I have been an Orem, Utah resident for 32 years, right near UVU and also near BYU. They're not too far apart. With regard to what Laura had mentioned, what she'd read from the article, community, sociality, all those things that go into what makes a community what it is, and the changes that come from high density buildings, particularly near those schools that I'm so close to and have known much about. It truly, in my experience, has become exactly what the worry was from that article. The cost of living associated with being near the schools became a problem with the apartments going in. It was very, very difficult to find some place because of all the competition and things like that. Being that the area was now taken up by more dense places owned by fewer companies and or people who would be renting, they then kind of controlled that market and set it where they wanted it to, which was not conducive to someone who needs to take loans for school and then pay more. Just the same, once those were filled up, I experienced quite a lot of 3 different instances of personal theft because I was living in proximity to some of those apartments. One in particular that was the most egregious, a gun was stolen from my car that was in a locked box. They actually also broke through the box, had enough time to do that before any response from law enforcement. Partly because Orem has more or less come to capacity, and Vineyard, right next to Orem, decided that they would take up slack and build more high density as well. So they have, at this point, already outgrown themselves, which caused further problems that Cedar City, I begin to believe, is trending toward. Orem, Provo, and Vineyard are the model, it sounds like, that Cedar City is following, and I hate my own hometown now because of what it's become. And I would urge the council to shore up this plan and find any way that you can to specify what it means in order to keep these communities much more tight-knit, much more family-oriented, and help block yourself from problems in the future. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jenna Boehm, and I live on 300 West, just a couple down from the Big Yellow Inn. And I found out about the meeting from a neighbor or an old neighbor who lives across town via text. So that's how I landed here today. But I was curious, living on the street and 3 houses down from where this is happening. I was looking at chapter 26 of the planning and zoning. There's article 12 about the amendments. And the second point in there says that there should be posting of signs by the city on property to be rezoned so that people in our neighborhood know that this is happening and they can come to this and be here. But I didn't see any posting. So I was just curious, were things posted, or how are we supposed to find out what's happening? Because I didn't see any posting of any signs.
So before an item comes to the planning commission, staff meets and we go through, okay, you're going to need to post that. You're going to need to post this. So I can tell you that direction was given.
Okay.
I didn't drive by to make sure it was done, but I will follow up this week before the action meeting to make sure that happened.
Yeah, I
But
think
that
a
would've
lot more of
done-
my neighbors would have liked to be here.
That would have happened prior to the planning commission meeting, not city council.
Can we ask if anybody saw it in the neighborhood? I never saw it.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, I did. You saw one?
Okay.
Where was it at?
It was on the south end of the property, right by the sidewalk.
What property?
I walk my dogs by that every day.
The far end of the south end of those 4 homes, but you're saying the far south end of the home.
So it wasn't in the intersections like that thing says?
Yeah, it says. Yeah. I mean, if you want me to read it, I can. Do you want me to read it? It says the posting of a sign or signs by the city on the property proposed to be rezoned. The signs shall be posted in a conspicuous place at all points where city streets intersect within 10 feet of the street right-of-way line. The signs shall be at least 24 inches square and be labeled with 2-inch high letters reading proposed zone change notice with the zone change notice stapled below, and it says the applicant pays a $25 fee. Within 5 business days is item 1.
I might suggest maybe, and I don't know, maybe they currently do this, but maybe we need to take a cell phone picture of where these postings happen in the future so we can document that it actually was done. I don't know. Something. to
Yeah.
protect
And
us.
you know, the gentleman that just spoke brought something to my mind that I thought of. I moved into my house on 300 West last June, and the weekend before all of the students moved in for the semester to start, all of the cars on my street were broken into, including both of mine. And I just had this moment of like, wow, I live in Cedar City again, and I do work at SUU. I'm a professor at SUU. So, you know, I love that the students are here. It's the reason why I have a job. But I do think that planning and making sure that the housing need is part of this decision is important.
Thank you.
Laura Henderson, one more quick point. Chandler Tovey currently resides on Dewey Avenue in the basement of the Garfield rental, which is owned by David Minear, and he is currently a student at SUU. So he had a unique perspective in that he does not live in student housing. And when I've talked to him about why he doesn't live in student housing, he brings up things like cost, privacy, personal choice, you know, just a very, he could have lived in student housing, but he chose not to. And so it's interesting that the project, one of the homes in the project is where he currently lives, rents. So anyway, thank you.
I'm Jack Hill. I live at 107 South 200 West. And when Levitt Land bought those homes on Shakespeare Lane and tore them all down and built the cottages, I was just amazed. First of all, there's no setback to speak of. There's one-way traffic in front of the cottages, and I don't believe anybody lives in them. I live, you can look out my kitchen window and look at the backside of the 2 cottage buildings, and I've only seen a light on in 2 of those apartments ever. And I was invited by Levitt Land to a meeting, and one of the people in Levitt Land asked me why I didn't support the building of those places. I said, I don't know what the heck they are. So I got the cook's tour of the pictures and the ideas and everyone, and I said, well, who's going to live there? And I was told by Mr. Levitt that it would be in the summertime, the people that attended the festival would live in the cottages. And in the wintertime, when the festival wasn't running, why it would be college students and professors. Have you heard the cottages advertised on KSUB?
Mm-hmm.
If you want a beautiful, nice apartment, come and rent one of the cottages. That didn't set too well with me. I guess I don't own the place, so I guess I can keep my mouth shut. Student housing is an abomination. I used to work at Southern Utah University, and in the job I had, fortunately, I visited all the university campuses in the state. And there's not a damn one of them that don't have problems with housing. And it would seem to me that at some point in time, somebody's going to have to decide that, hey, we ought to sit down and look at this and come up with a better way to house students. Because you sure as hell aren't doing it now. Young lady just talked about cars breaking into. I talked with, I had the pleasure of listening to Mrs. Hartley and Mr. Isa speak at that, quote, debate. And I made the point that there was a house across the street from me on 200 West where there were 5 young ladies living in the upstairs and a couple downstairs. And they all had a car. That's 7 cars. Guess where they park? In front of my house, in front of everyone else's house. There's just no continuity, and there isn't any planning that goes toward it. And I've been told that that they want all the housing for students around the university. Well, I live in a neighborhood that I like. I built that house in 1978. My dear sweet mother-in-law that passed away lived in it. And now I wouldn't be a bit surprised if I'm going to have to move out of there because it's a mess. People park all over and anyway, you got a bunch of problems. And the idea of who can build in an area, you got to settle that problem. No one knows what they can or cannot do firmly in terms of, yeah, I can go ahead and do that. And you got a lot of problems, Isom. Thank you.
I'm glad I've been called out a couple of times tonight. That's fine.
Isom? I thought that was your name.
No,
It
that
is.
That
It
is.
is. You got it right.
And I have broad shoulders.
I called you a couple other things, but I won't mention them.
No, I know.
You have 1 more minute. I know it's 30.
You can have one more minute.
Laura Henderson again. And I don't consider Jack Hill chatter. That man's as important as anybody. And it breaks my heart. I've only been a resident of Cedar for 4 years. And had we known what was going on, and we did our research before we bought, my husband and I wouldn't have bought our home in Cedar in that area. I mean, it was what we could afford if we had known. And I know my neighbors are all going that we wouldn't have done that. I mean, they've made investment. I'm an investor. I know SUU's an investor. I know David Minier's an investor, and I respect that he's actually been talking to us. I don't know what his plan, is going to look like, but I respect the man that he's actually talked to us. And I think we could all, as neighbors, appreciate that because nobody else is talking to us. When these other projects go up, they're just crazy. And the one over on 450, I don't know how the fire department's gonna work that out because they're right on the sidewalk. I mean, there's literally, they're right next to the sidewalk at the front of that building on 450. And if their cars parked there, I don't know how the fire department's going to get into that front of that building.
There won't be cars parked there.
There won't? Okay, well, That's
There'll be
good
no
because
parking.
that was by design. Okay, because I'm like, this is kind of scary, but that being said, I just feel like I've been misled. My husband and I have been misled. We wanted to live in Cedar until we died in our home. That was our goal. And now I feel like I've been deceived by the fact that, and I agree with Scott Hunt, I bought a house and I thought, this is the zone that it's in, and this is my expectation, to quote Tyler Romero's words, this is my expectation for this home. When my husband and I paid for that home and bought that home, that was our expectation for that home. And it's still our expectation for that home. And I do not want, it's a shame. I'm not happy about it. I don't know what my next move is going to be, but it's just disgraceful. And Jack lives between two Levitt properties. I mean, and he's got people looking in his backyard, just like the Hunts have people looking down in their big yellow inn. Nobody here is living like we are.
Yes, I am.
Well, Scott, I stand corrected. I stand corrected. But I'm saying, as far as superstructures go, it was bad enough when the Founders building went down at the end of the street. I said, well, I could say to myself, well, gosh, at least it's down at the end of the street. And, it's not looking over into my bathroom, when I'm taking a shower, or my bedroom. But I still feel deceived. And it's just
Laura, with all
sad.
due respect, it was R3, which.
Well, and that's what I understand that. I understand that.
Yeah.
But that being said, that doesn't mean every project would get approved. And pretty much the projects have been on the periphery. It's a shock that that's even being considered in the middle of a neighborhood. I don't think anybody would go into buying a home saying, well, okay, so it's R3, so I'm going to plan that there's going to be a 35-foot tall building next to my house or across the street. I didn't plan that there was going to be a sorority house across from my home either. And so that's a double whammy. So, I mean.
But in R3, they can do that.
35, right. Well, as long as it's not a business. If it's in a SHD, they can do that. They can have
they can have an apartment building in R3.
Right, for 35 feet tall. I know that. But again, who goes into the thought of into a neighborhood thinking, well, I think there's going to be a 35-foot tall building across from my house or behind my house? None of us would. Nobody.
Well, you need to acknowledge that, though. If it is zoned that already,
right,
then there is that expectation that could happen.
Could we?
Yeah, the SHD
Mayor,
is
could I ask one
different,
question? Sorry.
but the R3.
Could be developed.
Wait, we can't have this if you're not at the mic because we're not getting
I
it.
was going to say, okay, what was,
I wanted to know if I could ask, does Mr. Minear have anything he'd like to contribute to this? Because he's probably the only person we haven't heard from yet in this process.
I mean, I don't want to go point to point because
but will you still state your name?
David Minear. Sorry, I'm the owner of the properties where we're trying to do this project. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to dispute point to point. Of course, they have valid points, and I know most of the neighbors and sisters of best friends in high school. I mean, I know these people. I've been here for a long time. I don't want to cause a ruckus. It was R3, the project right now. And I've given them the example of over there on 800 West, what we plan on it looking like. And so even now, we could do it, I guess, without even going through this process, minus maybe the lower level. And so, and I've met with them, texted quite a bit with them, and tried to give it. It's a little hard. It's a little bit of a backwards process because until we get the approval, don't know exactly what we can do, although everything will be within the laws and ordinances or however you want to state that. And I think there's some benefits to this. These are houses that are, and thanks for renting. Where did that one fella go that's renting from me? But that's the nicest house of them, and it's got its own problems. And Mr. Phillips, Councilman Phillips, talked about that. Obviously, everybody's aware of the condition of the houses and things. And so, yeah, the height is a little bit of a problem. and the privacy, and I understand all those issues. But again, I don't think it's all bad. It takes cars off the street right now. My rentals have 4 people in a house with a driveway that can only fit 1 car if it can get in through that dip on 300 West. And so 3 cars are on the street. This kind of project brings cars off of the street and it eliminates traffic. Kids will walk. It's close. It's in the middle of a block, but it's a half a block from the classrooms on the university campus. And so I get it. I get it that they're going to be looking at a little bit of a parking lot and a building. But my intention is to provide safe, updated housing for students. And the whole issue of, is everybody going to go online? That's a risk I'm taking with my money, and I understand that. And we'll be doing further research on that, and kind of beside the point to the issue that I think is being talked about here tonight. So I have been open to meeting with the neighbors and trying to discuss in any way possible, but it all comes down to, it's just not financially, from a financial point of view, it's not possible just to tear down an entire house and build another 3 or 4 bedroom thing. It's just, that doesn't work. The density makes it work, obviously. And that's what I want to do is, as an investor, as whatever you want to call me, as an owner, replace these falling apart houses with mostly horrible yards with a nice place for students to live and easy access to Southern Utah University. And I'm happy to answer questions. It's not a very good, I don't know what else to say.
I have 2 questions for you. And I don't have the exact addresses. So I've got 2 favors I want to ask of you.
Okay.
If this project is approved and goes through, would you please consider that at least on 300 West, we have a front side of a building and not a back side of a building? Because that will give us at least a sense of a neighborhood or something happening there instead of seeing a backside. It's like I say, I get so frustrated with all these apartment buildings. I know why, because of the parking, but at least put another door on it or something, because would you want all of our houses on a street to have all their backs to the street? I don't think so. Okay, that's long term. Short term, one of those buildings, and I believe it's 336 South, but I could have the address wrong, has an old dilapidated sofa out in the front yard. Could you please get rid of that?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, that's a property that's under contract, and so I can't take it right now, but
okay,
next week I'll be able to.
All right, at least I know that. Thank you.
So.
Thank you for your comments.
Thanks, Dave.
And then I am considerate of, like I said, there's some things, like even the back to 300 West, I don't know how that's going to work and how that's going to happen and what the possibilities are, but I've been open to things I know we can control, which is colors and some portions of the facade and the design. I do care.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's up to the mayor.
If you ever consider selling all 5 homes, we think we could find buyers for all 5 homes. And that's how much the neighborhood does not want it. We would probably buy one and we would find other people to buy other ones, just to keep in the back of your mind if things get too long.
Yeah, no, this is a big project for me. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. And, but that's definitely an option, and of course, everybody's always, well, they can put their money where their mouth is, and that's what you're doing. And I'm definitely open to that. From my side, I know there are neighbors that are close to or willing to sell. So I'm also, more of those houses are going to sell. And so I think this is maybe the first, but it's not even the first time you're dealing with it. But absolutely, I'm open to that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we will close our public hearing on this item and put it on our action agenda.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our staff portion with item number 9. Consider a resolution to begin the process of terminating ownership rights on abandoned cemetery lots.
And we know this is why you all came.
Yes, thank
Wade.
you all.
Wade, you're still awake, buddy.
Thank you all for coming and for participating.
They're not done yet.
We're not done
We're
yet.
not done with the meeting.
2 more agenda items.
You go ahead.
Wade Orm, Parks Division Head. I had a Dr. Pepper at the beginning of the meeting, so that's why I'm still awake. So, roughly a year ago, somewhere around that, citizen brought some questions to the city council asking about abandoned plots or changing some ordinance. We changed some ordinances, making it so the city could try to reclaim abandoned plots following state statutes, if I remember correctly, which states any plots that are deemed abandoned of 60 years or plus, we go through a process to reclaim them. We've gone through our records. We have come with 471, I believe it was. Wow. So many. So they were right on there. Plots that we do not believe have been used in the last 60 plus years. So
these are gently used plots?
No, not used at all is the better way of saying it. So some of them, to be upfront, if the city reclaimed them, we probably would not suggest using and reselling. They are older ones where some of the record keeping wasn't great. We're talking late 1800s, early 1900s, where babies were buried and just in family plots, kind of where they come in, bought 8. It says that there is, 4 in there and 4 unknowns. They just don't quite know where. So some of those are that, but we've gone through there and that's what we've found. So
What will that do to our quote unquote inventory? I mean, will we be able to resell some of them? Or are we abandoning 471?
No. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I think it was close to a third. And that's not, I've worked with the university. I've called around to see if we could find somebody that would provide some services to help us locate some of those and to determine which ones we would want to and which ones we would not. With the ones that we decide not to, that would make it available for us to plant some trees as part of that planning process. Move some of those trees off the streets that are starting to cause problems with the asphalt. As we remove some of those trees that we've been working on, we would replace them and put them in the sections there where they will not cause problems to headstones or anything like that for us. So it would help with that aspect as well.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's something that's necessary.
Absolutely. So this is just the first step. If the resolution's approved, we'll do our best to find the owners and give them notice. If we can't, then we'll publish it in the paper and then we'll go from there.
And will that fall on your office to try and find the owners along with help from volunteers and things?
As far as Tyler,
I'm just thinking of staffing is what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, we'll work together to try to figure that out.
Okay.
We may actually even pull in the police department because they've got access to some records we don't.
Well, again, special collections at the university may have some folks. The historic preservation folks may have some help there too.
Are there any other questions? This will go on the action agenda where it's a resolution.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Item number 10, consider an ordinance adopting Utah's Wildland Urban Interface Code.
Yes, we could. Could be another
25 words or less.
25 or less.
2.5
Now,
minutes.
I
here's
was
the
like,
fun reason.
2.5 minutes or less.
under no
No,
circumstance.
2.5 minutes or less.
No acronyms.
No acronyms. Mike Shirts with the fire department. I only have 500 or 600 pages. Yeah. So as you'll recall, last year we brought forth a map, a zone map, which was approved. Subsequently, we've brought through the process now an I code, the Utah Wildland Urban Interface Code, which we're just asking for your approval to adopt that code. I do have a little PowerPoint if Kit wants to bring it up, but it's not necessary unless you want me to.
How many slides?
There's, I think, 5.
Oh yeah, we like pictures.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. I know it's
I've seen
late.
this,
And
so I can go to the rest of
Three
it.
slides.
They did enclose the handbook in our packet, which was wonderful.
38 pages or
38
so.
pages. That
Yeah.
was, yeah. that
Yeah,
was
as far as codes
good
go,
reading
that's fairly
material.
brief. They're typically much longer. So it's just the Wildland Urban Interface. Some time ago, just a little bit of background, This is a 2006 version of that code that the International Code Council put out. It was then amended and vetted primarily by the Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands at the state level. And this is the version that they went through and that applies more specifically to conditions in Utah. So can I advance it? You can though. Okay. I have to point over there. We go to the next slide then, Kit, if you can. Can you go to the next one, Kit? I broke this down just to try to be brief, and this is the same presentation that we gave to the Planning Commission and roughly the same one that we presented to some of the home builders in one of their meetings. So there are 4 areas of this code. One is the map, which we've already currently adopted. Number 2 are the wildland urban interface area requirements, which have to do largely with just access and water supply. We take care of that currently through our development process largely. And then special building construction regulations that this code contains. As part of this process, the fire department will evaluate, first of all, whether or not new construction or new development is within that red area in the map. If it is, then some of these requirements will be applied to that permit or to that development or home. So what happened, Kit?
Oh, I just did that.
There we go. Keep going. Okay. Yeah, he is. So if there are any questions, maybe I could just answer those. This works. We've set up in our normal online process for this to work using the same tools that we already have in place to evaluate building permits as they come through. Our My City Inspector online portal works for this. It doesn't create a new process for someone to bring a set of plans, and it goes in the existing process, and then there is a step where we evaluate it for its applicability to this WUI code, Wildland Urban Interface Code. So
does this particular ordinance does it allow people to still build in a mountainous forestry area, but it provides certain, if you do, this might be the repercussions, or can they not build there?
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that both the Planning Commission and the home builders really liked, is it doesn't say that you can't do something. It just says that if you want to leave the trees and build on a very steep slope, then there are some building requirements that are consequences of building in that area. So we anticipate that a lot of the mitigation work will be done at the subdivision level when they clear and grub and level and remove some of the natural vegetation and replace it with landscaping and those things. So if someone did want to go into an area and build in a canyon and leave all the natural vegetation, then the code gives us some tools to evaluate that in terms of the hazard that it represents, and then apply some of these code requirements, which are non-combustible construction and screening off gutters and gable end vents and some of those things in that chapter 5 of the code. So it's a fairly simple code as far as they go.
And my chief concern with anything that's going to affect building is how does it affect the cost of housing? And I just want to make sure my impressions from the Planning Commission meeting were correct. And Craig, I think you were there. So it seems that the Home Builders Association input was that it's not really going to have a substantial effect on costs. Is that correct?
Yep, we asked that question specifically. And
Good. Okay.
They're on board.
Okay, perfect. That was my only concern.
That's my understanding as well.
Are you done?
I think I'm finished.
Wow.
Just really quickly, Chapter 17 is where we adopt the WUI officially. The language is written so that as the WUI is updated, that our ordinance will adopt those updates. And then there's a few exceptions we put in there. just to make sure it was 100% clear how Cedar City was going to deal with it. If you have any questions on the exceptions, I can go through them.
And we can, if there is a major issue, we could amend that if needed from time to time.
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm trying to be quick, but there are a couple of things along with that. We said that if this conflicts with any other Cedar City ordinance or regulation, then the Cedar City ordinance
takes precedence.
Takes precedence. The other thing that I wanted to mention was that, and that you should consider, is that this code eliminates the use of fireworks in this zone. So that would be a change.
I'm sorry, one more time.
So there would be no fireworks allowed within this WUI zone.
Oh,
So we adopted the map earlier. It's a lot of the undeveloped land. The idea is once that land develops in accordance with this zone, we can revisit the map and eliminate them from the WUI area. But that's a big change. No fireworks in those areas. As a city, we've been reluctant to restrict fireworks. We've been reluctant to prohibit fireworks.
Yeah, but we provided 3 or 4 places within the community to do them in addition to the cities.
I understand. We're just trying to highlight that because we know on January 8th, it's no big deal, but on July 4th, it's going to be a huge deal. So
I think some of that goes back to expectations too. I hate regulation as much as anybody, but if you're buying land and developing a house in a wildland urban interface that is basically a high fire risk, you would expect, at least I would think, if doing due diligence, that fireworks are probably a little more dangerous in that area than in an area that doesn't have a bunch of edges. So anyway, I think I'm okay with that too.
And this code is what is currently adopted in the county building. So one thing that the home builders wanted was some consistency. And so this is the same model code that they have adopted in the county, and it has been since 2007, I believe. So. Okay, great.
Hey, good job. All right,
Thank
this will
you.
go on the action
Mike.
agenda. With that,
I move that we close this meeting and go into closed session.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call. We'll start with Councilwoman Hartley.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Boy, Tyler, you got a
Baptism
3
by
hours,
fire.
blah, 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 plus a closed session. I was telling you, I remember this. My first meeting I went to was 35 minutes long. And Paul Cousins says, "Don't get used to this."
Yeah, I was going to say.
Hi. How are you? Happy New Year to you. I did. Do you know all these fine people? Do you know Mr. Isom? This is Elise Carden. She's the chair of our historic preservation. Do you know Tyler? Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. So which? Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. Really? Very cool. Yeah. Nice to meet you. Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
Your choice was.
Oh, yeah. She sees everyone through there. It's funny. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so what was your name again? Elise. Okay. Yeah. Okay, you're yeah. I don't think I talked to you, but I talked to your husband really briefly. So yeah. So okay, it's good to put a face to it.
Oh, no, it's okay. I just want to know an idea.
Yeah,
Say 30% actually come back.
Maybe we should from getting some food real quick before the closed session. Hey, I'm gonna grab a quick snack.
Fuel it.
Now I feel bad.
I'm glad I hooked up to my new
Well, he said yes.
contraption.
I said, okay.
Was that right? Is it, does it?
Has a six hour battery.
Because my tank would have not lasted. I would have been out of air an hour and a half ago. I got this new toy.
That was hilarious. I can't believe I did that. The guy who sticked his leg. You're like, there's a light. He's like, I know. That's why I jumped in front of him all.
Hey, Dory, you all, let's start our closed session. Everybody out.
Or you want to do this, but this guy, he buys this property and you want to say you can't do what you want with it.
Get out.
I have a real issue.
I want to go see my baby. Out. Go tell him to get in here and bring the snacks.
Russ Olson sent me a million texts. You know, I don't mind stuff in the neighborhood like Gray Cat's barbershop, and I'm like, so you got a business in there, and
This is Phillips.
like,
Believe me, that
anyway.
Who are we missing?
Let's see, Scott's right there.
Scott's there. Where's Tyler?
Tyler said, I've had enough. After one meeting, I'm done.
The other Tyler.
I don't know where he went.
Out.
Doesn't matter. It's the nuisance.
Phillips.
It
Find
is.
Tyler.
That's why I went.
Find
that
Tyler.
direction, and I could tell it pissed a lot of people off, but it's like, I use the word harass. They do harass them.
I'm grateful that you went the direction you did.
I
I couldn't have bought
We
in.
sent Mike to find him.
We had to make that-
The other Tyler. Milling. All right. Okay. Scott, sit down.
I just told him he left after the first meeting. He got back.
I'm ending fences.
Sit.
And no fence system in.
Or mic's off. Can anyone in the hallway hear us?
What was that?
Can anyone in the hallway hear us? Our mic's off. Speak
No.
now. Open the door if you can hear us. Okay.
Is our recording stopped?
Oh.
No, you didn't end that.
You whiz, Rob roll. We give you one thing to do.
Running in the gym, you're so lazy.
Parking in the street.
This is a tough crowd.
Yeah.